And good evening,
Nashville.
Nashville.
Your
Your
boy
boy
Sean
Sean
Good
Good
on
on
92Q for
92Q for
our
our
92Q
92Q
election
election
night
night
special. And I
special. And I
gave you
gave
some
you some
dramatic
dramatic
music
music
to
to
make you
make you
feel
feel
like that
like
this
this
is
is
going to be
going to be
so
so
serious. And
serious
it
tonight.
is
It
a
is a
serious
serious
night,
night,
but we're
but
going
we're
to
going
have
to
a
have a
whole
whole
lot of
lot of
fun.
fun.
And I'm
And I'm
also
also
excited
excited
because I
because I
have
have
with
with
me
me
an
an
amazing
amazing
person,
person,
and
and
she's like
she's
my
like
new
my new
partner in
partner in
crime.
crime.
Ladies and
Ladies and
gentlemen,
gentlemen,
Harriet
Harriet
Wallace is
Wallace is
here.
here.
Hey, good evening, Nashville. Good evening, Tennessee, wherever you are listening from. We are so excited. And I'm feeling the music. That was a good choice.
Yeah, it was, right?
It's a dramatic night. It's going down in Nashville. It's going down in Tennessee. It's going down around the country. We got a lot to talk about.
We do. We have a whole lot to talk about, and we're gonna keep you all up to date throughout the night. So there's already some results starting to come through. So we're going to be giving you that information really, really soon. We're going to have some in-studio guests, right, Harriet? They're going to kind of help us. We're going to really recap the election season because it has been real passionate, I guess, to say the least.
I think, that's so nice. I guess that's the radio version. We're going to give passionate. I would give another word if, I could, if we had delayed airing here, we could put it out there. But yes, we're going to have a great discussion. We've got some awesome people who know their stuff. They're going to be in studio with us. We've got some folks who are going to be talking with us at the other campaigns around the state, and even, from around the country. We've got some local folks because here's the thing, Sean, we don't just have candidates on the ballot.
Right.
We've got issues
We do.
on the ballot. And we've got some folks who are pretty in bed with these topics that are going to be calling in. But we also want the folks who are listening and watching to get involved as well.
We do. If you're listening, first of all, you can join us live on YouTube right now at 92Q Nashville. You can be a part of this entire night. You can leave your comment, your question, and we'll engage with you. We will actually be able to engage with our in-studio guests as well. And you're going to be on top of all of these results. So go ahead and get on YouTube right now at 92Q Nashville. And you can also call into the radio station at 615-737-9292. Leave your comment or your question, and we will take it. And we're going to have a really robust discussion about issues as we watch these results come in and we choose who the next president of the United States will be.
And speaking of president and choices, I guess we should run the ballot, right? For those who may not remember, or if you're one of those who didn't vote, shame. But it's all good.
That's cool. So we're gonna give a rundown. What I gotta do first, though, is I want to get you guys in a good mood.
Okay.
So I gotta give you, I always give you a mix from one of our DJs, DJ Tui, and he's gonna be here to give you another mix. So as you are trying to get yourself wrapped around this election, I want you to kind of hit this mix. This is DJ Tui. This mix is powered by Vibes Bar and Lounge, 1524B to Mumbrian Street. Tui, let's go.
I was trying to take that out, but I can't take out the mix. The sponsor.
Thank you guys for waiting.
Oh, no problem at all. No problem at all.
The beer. Trace. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
The beer.
Nice
You're
area.
warm. Listen,
I'm a little bit hot. Excuse me. Good to see
you're
you.
okay. You've been walking. Welcome. Come on
Good to see
in.
you again.
Yeah.
You too. Yeah, you remember meeting me? Yeah, good to see you.
Come on in. Grab a seat. We've got some headphones for you over there.
I'm taking the candy. I'm in for the candy.
Yeah, that's right. So it looks like there's already stuff coming through.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
Because she got 3 electoral votes from Vermont, and he got 8 from.
Can I take that other side to see this?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, not a problem at all.
Isolate myself.
And we just did the open. Welcomed everybody in. We're taking a little music break. So that'll give you time to get settled.
Yeah, and then when we come back, we'll introduce both of you guys, and we'll talk about some of the ballots, and then give some of the race updates what we got so far. Let me go to the election information.
I've got them pulled up.
You got it pulled up?
Mhm.
Okay.
Two pairs of 3 years ago. 95 is what we did. 10, 11, 12. I mean, with the exception of 3 years.
And people don't realize the whole down ballot impact because you would look at the projections. You have Trump outpace. I mean, it's so minimal at this point, but like kind of outpacing, Kamala. But then when you look at the House and Senate races, they're trending the same. Close, but
Just
Republicans.
curiosity overall, do you have the whole thing? Do we have a overall over under for the night? Do you know? I'm just guessing on your personal predictions here. What do you got?
Personal predictions. You know, it's hard to say. I do kind of feel like I don't know what kind of strong ground game Gloria Johnson had. If she's really going to take Marsha's seat, I really don't know. Yeah. I know she's
giving it a good try.
Yeah, I know she raised a decent amount of money, but I don't think it was enough to pull her out. I am going to be interested to see if Andy Ogles hangs on. I don't know with all the scandals and stuff.
I was gonna say, do you mean hang on tonight or like tomorrow morning when they're like, okay, Congressman, now we'll go get the rest of the equipment that we've come for.
I'm just saying. I mean, that's true. I mean, so I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? It's not as near as much fun to get somebody who's not the congressman.
Yeah, it's true. It's not. But I feel like he might actually keep his seat. Harry, what do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's going to phase him.
He is totally on brand at this moment with the Republican ideal. And not only that, but we're seeing a lot of momentum, a lot of interest from the Republican Party. They're sticking true to brand with their movement and with their vote. And yeah, absolutely. He is.
Yeah. The money message is strong.
The
money message is strong. And it's very simple, actually. It's a script.
Yeah.
Now, I think that Megan Berry is going to give Mark Green a run. I think she's giving him a run.
Yeah.
I just still don't know if it's going to get her over the finish line, but I think she gave him a really, really solid.
Mark had a very bizarre last month.
So yeah, I was hearing,
but he actually has been bizarre. Like
he wasn't even going to
be
in the race.
Yeah, I was saying the whole thing was bizarre.
It was whole weird the way he got back into the race because he was done. She was running unopposed, and then all of a sudden, oh, he's not getting out.
Yeah, but then
when he realized he had a formidable opponent,
yeah,
probably was pressure to like.
I think so.
Yeah, because I don't really think he wanted to do
it. He didn't, and suppose.
I think he liked the governor.
But there were some things behind the scenes, going on that we're hearing some of that. Yeah, things behind the scenes was like,
there's no behind the scenes. Like I think his wife was not behind the scenes. His wife was very public. There was nothing behind the scenes.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, so some of that and
like she sent emails to lots of people. Is what I mean.
Did she?
I get like very publicly upset.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by not behind the scenes.
And it was in the news at one point.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
reported about it.
Not all of them. Yes. But I believe like she tried to alert all of them. It was like the select that chose to speak on it. But yeah.
Okay. Well, since it's already out there,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot.
That's kind of you to be.
But that was a lot of the hesitation, and from what I was told and understanding, still some of the hesitation because when we look at the last time he ran, and I don't know, you all share your thoughts. His campaign game wasn't as aggressive this time, in my opinion, as the last time. So, I don't know. We'll see. But I think regardless of if they want to do it or not, blah blah blah. I think people are just voting according to their color, party color.
Yeah. Well, I would think.
I think it's going to be interesting to see the demographic trends.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of Republicans got out and voted early, especially in the swing states, which is kind of new for the Republican Party, which is going to really show if Republicans are doing what I think a lot of their ground game campaigns sought out to do, which is take voters from Democrats as well as pull their voters out. So even in Tennessee, that's what I'm interested in seeing. I don't think any of our federal races are going to win. But I do think it's going to be interesting to see the vote margins and to see if there is.
Yeah, the vote margins matter.
There is a shift. Like if you look at a lot of the polls that have been done and the surveys, there's a lot of shifting. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of difference between what's been in the past and what we're seeing now. And one of the other things that I've been seeing is that, and I'm sure y'all seen it too, where a lot of people really feel like I'm not sold on either candidate.
There is an out-of-stop set called Elect 10, I believe. It's an out-of-stop set. Put it right after the mix.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, I don't really prefer either one of them. And then kind of going down to, okay, well, let me look more specifically at the issues. And then you have some Democrats who would have traditionally voted, blue, but then they're looking at like economy or things like that. Like, well, Trump was better on the economy and immigration. And then you have some people looking, the opposite way. So, I mean, the numbers are all over the place to me. Yeah. And then when you look at the numbers with Black men and voting, how some of them were departing from the Democratic Party and moving towards Trump, and then recently we're starting to kind of come on back.
I'm interested to see that because the numbers in the past don't suggest
it's not gonna pull up
that
when you
there
put it in
is
quick.
a shift from
Just
Black men
insert.
going from Democrat to Republican.
But
the conversations do, right? So I'm wondering if that is going to be something.
I don't think it's Democrat to Republican. I just think it was to Trump.
Yeah.
I think it was just the to Trump effect.
See.
What do you think?
Like it could be anybody down the ballot stuff. It was just the two options are with. Cause, lately, I would say, it's overwhelmingly like he's sold out to everything. Like he's just saying everything at this point. Like all the commercials say everything. Like from Eat Your Cat to the illegal, like all the stuff. Like just throw the kitchen sink, and everything is just like you can just tell it's these last little demographics of little chips. Because actually, what I was asking too is I think it'll literally come down to 2 points.
It's going to be tight.
I think it might be literally 2 points.
Definitely going to be tight. Because I think voters are also, there are two different headphones on. I think voters are having to make two really tough decisions. They're voting on the candidate and then they're voting on the issues.
So what we'll do is we're going to come back in a minute. We have a little intro. I'll get you introduce a guest in the studio, and then we'll go into a few minutes talking about what we're discussing about the different races and what our projections are.
Cool.
Okay. What's the volume? Oh, is this the volume? This now?
Thank y'all for having me again. This is exciting.
Glad to be here. You.
Appreciate it. Tequila, besides co-founder of the Equity Alliance, is there anything else you want me to mention? I'm gonna do a little glitter on it anyway, but is there anything?
Equity Alliance Fund, which is asking for.
Yeah.
I know what I need.
Conversation. But yeah, I worked on campaigns. This is my fourth presidential cycle. This is my fourth presidential cycle that I've worked on.
Y'all are busy.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just gonna ask her on a prayer, but I'm surprised you were even available.
Because I usually clear. I was gonna go to Memphis, but I told them I booked the flight because I was like,
all right, here we go.
Welcome back to this 92Q election night special. I'm your host, Sean Good, with Miss Harriet Wallace here. How are you doing?
Doing all right, Brady. I'm so I got butterflies.
I
love
There's already results coming in. We're going to get to those in just a second, but I want Harriet to introduce. We got some guests in the studio, and I'm excited because we've already had some really engaging conversations.
Oh yeah, so for sure, if you're listening to us on radio, we want you to call in. If you are listening and watching on YouTube, be sure to get involved. So starting it off, we've got with us representing the Republican side, Trace Whittam. I've known him for some time. He's an amazing. I love him. Listen, let's run his credentials very quickly. He was formerly a senior legislative aide to Senate Speaker Pro Tem, senior legislative aide in the Senate Finance, Ways and Means to the Senate Finance, Ways and Means Chairman. In 2022, the TNGOP congressional candidate, and formerly, if his name sounds familiar, that's because he recently was running in the primary race for the U.S. Senate seat. Trace, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. And if you were one of the 43,228 Tennesseans that selected me for the United States Senate, I thank you very much for listening. Sometimes in the election cycle, you wonder, did anybody listen? But they are little by little. They are, baby.
Listen, they know who you are, and he's got a beard now. If you can see it, oh my goodness, I love it.
I'm a grown man.
And to my left, We've got the amazing, the living legend. I know y'all know this name, Tequila Johnson, co-founder of the Equity Alliance and the Equity Alliance Fund. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
All things amazing. Like I told her, I'm surprised we were able to wrangle you in, because this woman is not only all around the state, but she's around the country, around the area. Your fourth presidential cycle?
Fourth
Good.
presidential
Wow.
cycle
Good.
as a strategist and organizer.
Busy woman. We've got her in the house, everybody. Her work and the work of the Equity Alliance has put several people in some seats. So listen, we've got some folks that know what they're talking about, Sean.
We do. We really do. And I want us to take a second as we're right now, just kind of give you an update, and you'll be able to see some of this live information on our YouTube channel. But right now, you have Vermont was called for Vice President Kamala Harris. So that's 3 electoral votes. And so far, Indiana and Kentucky have been called for former President Donald Trump. So we're 19 electoral votes to her 3 at this point. So, but it's early on, and you're going to have some smaller states. What I am anticipating is Georgia.
Oh,
Because
it's going
Georgia should
down
be getting
in
a
Georgia.
lot of votes in early, because they had to have all the early votes counted by the time their polls close. So we should get some results
Right.
from them soon.
And so here's the thing, in case you all haven't heard, let's go ahead and bring you all up to speed, because it's getting busy, it's getting active across the country. Georgia, they had at 5 polling sites that had bomb threats, had to close those temporarily. They reopened them, and they said that they're going to keep them open a little bit later, because the polls close at 7. They're going to keep them open a little bit later. And then, so we're going to have to wait for those. Then in Philly, if you all heard, former President Trump was already saying earlier, there's been some voter fraud out there. Investigators are called in. Police were called in. The head of the police department said that is absolutely false. Sean, let's kick it out to our guest here. Are you all surprised to hear any of this? Bomb threats, allegations,
Absolutely
word
not. Unfortunately, absolutely not. I would say, listen, remember, folks, the peaceful transition of power. But remember, in the same sense, this is war. I mean, these are 2 opposing ideologies for the governing of not just America, but we would say the free world. And so, psych ops. Anything to intimidate people within the law and rules, meaning get inside your brain and get inside your phone and discourage you and tell you bad things, because it does scare people. So shame on those disgraceful Americans to do that, but it's going to continue, and we know this. And look, in voter fraud, I mean, come on. Obviously, we know nothing is perfect, but let's count the ballots. You shouldn't wait till today to start counting them. There's your first mistake.
Any surprise to you, Tequila, to be hearing this?
Not at all, especially in a state like Georgia, where we see Black folk turning out and voting at record numbers, where we see a record turnout doing early vote. I mean, I think it's important for us to recognize the times that we're in and think about what has been happening over the last couple of months as we've been on this crazy political cycle.
Right.
We've seen a lot of misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation. And what that does is it creates a sense of fear in people who have opposing ideology. So, yeah, I agree. Shame on those who came out and tried to discourage people from participating in democracy.
Yeah, and it's terrible, and it's something that we really need to go back to a day where we can have a healthy debate and still be able to sit down and talk to each other. And that's just, we've lost that, unfortunately. And I'm hoping that maybe we can kind of find a way to come around on the other side of that after tonight is all said and done.
Is this a foreshadowing of the transition of power? What do you think?
As I said, genuinely, remember, folks, the peaceful transition of power is simply just because somebody chooses to do that. But when you literally have political ideologies that don't agree, friends, that's war. And when we have a former president who has been allegedly shot at during this campaign cycle, we've had 4 years of riots. I don't know what you call this stuff, but it's not America. It's not the peaceful transition of power. The peaceful transition of power is when we choose to peacefully agree to disagree and then go along. But what's happening and being celebrated is not the America that we're moving towards.
Right. It's not. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break, check out the traffic, especially those that are still trying to get to a poll, because they close at 7:00. So you still got time. You got to get yourself in line. We'll give you a traffic update and we'll be right back. It's the 92Q election night special right here on 92Q. There we go. There we go. Everybody on YouTube, thank you guys for jumping in here. We really appreciate it. Jojo, I love you. How are you? I'm glad you're on here. Scott Wallace is here. He's also in the studio, but he's on there as well. Sissy Brown, thank you so much for being a part of this. Kels Marshall is working hard right now for the Election Commission. So she's still jumping in here to pay attention. And so thank you guys for being a part of this. We're really, really excited. And as we said on the air, we've got as far as the presidential race is concerned, Kamala Harris picked up 3 electoral votes from Vermont. Donald Trump has got Kentucky and Indiana at 19. And so we're still waiting on Georgia, which will be
it's going to be
very interesting. But
it's going to be a minute.
The biggest thing is that we've got local races that are really, really going to impact us here, and we're going to come back on the air and we're going to talk about that. It looks like is there an echo still, guys? No, okay. We do have some local races. One of the races that we were talking about earlier is the race between Gloria Johnson and Marsha Blackburn. Gloria Johnson and Marsha Blackburn. I feel like Gloria Johnson had a pretty decent ground game, but I don't think it's going to be enough to get her over the finish line. I think that Marsha Blackburn has just been in that seat for so long, and she's embedded into the bedrock of Tennessee politics. I just don't think that Gloria Johnson really has the strong enough shot to make that change.
I mean, I think if we were, and let me know y'all's thoughts. I think if we were in another state, perhaps. But Tennessee is a stronghold. It's a red stronghold. And I mean, you could be the best candidate, Democratic candidate on your best day and would still be challenged. And I think, Gloria Johnson has put up a really good fight. And then she's had a lot of, media attention with the last year. When was Tennessee? Was that last year? All my years are
it was last year.
I mean, and she's been on a roll ever since then, so it's not like she's been hidden away and then had to reemerge and pick up ground. She's been out there. It's just, I don't know, kind of a David and Goliath situation. Although we do know how David and Goliath turned out.
We do.
But for symbolic purposes, you're going up against a giant. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we will definitely see.
I think the giant is that of the TNGOP voter. The TNGOP voter is going to turn out like we've probably never seen in Tennessee. I think the big struggle with the TNGOP voter might be some of the older personnel, but that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about change in our own party, holding our side accountable as well. So election's about celebration, but we're also aware that there's personnel issues that we have to hold accountable.
There is.
And I really think that the conversation and the narrative that Tennessee is a red stronghold state is false. At one point, we were a blue state.
True.
Now, at one point, we were a blue state. And you also got to keep in mind that Tennesseans vote the least in the country. So what would the elections look like if the GOP, the Big Papa GOP, as he mentioned, made access to the ballot a little bit easier for Tennesseans, right? Mm-hmm. What would it look like? Would it look like, something that they don't want to see? I don't want to be suggestive, but, I will say there have been a lot of policies and bills passed in the last 15 to 20 years that have made it extremely hard for Tennesseans to register to vote, one, and get out and vote, two. If the GOP feels like the GOP voter stronghold is what's keeping them elected, why not implement automatic voter registration?
Well, it kind of is if you register, you register to get your driver's license, it is a check the box. I guess you would have to have a driver's license, but a Tennessee ID. So that it is those things. I guess education, making sure that people understand it's aware, making sure they click that.
Let's be honest, Tennessee has some of the most draconian voter laws in the country. I mean, we have the highest disenfranchisement rate for Black men. Over almost 500,000 Black men cannot get their rights restored. Tennessee is at the bottom for everything as it relates to democracy. You have to be registered to vote 30 days before the election. And in some days, you can register to vote the same day and vote. So
that is interesting. Not every, some states you can do that, but here it's this 30-day window. Why is that? Why is it that there's that difference when it's proven that you can do voter registration and have them in the system within 24 hours? Why is it that we have a 30-day window?
These are government processes that are going to go away, and I would assume they'll go away. Hopefully, if we have good leadership, they'll go away at least in the next 4 years. We've got to get more secure elections because we've got to secure our people as we move into the digital age. And as we secure our people and we identify our people, we'll be able to identify Americans, and we can secure you, your vote, your assets, your money, everything else. But that age is coming. I mean, we can talk about all these other, paper ballots are nice too, but we're also going to allow people to carry on for 3 more weeks and just raise money off us and put us through some political chaos. I mean, the whole voting system needs to be looked through with accountability and integrity.
Tequila, what are you hearing? Because I know that the Equity Alliance has done a lot of work in getting folks registered, getting them motivated to vote if they are registered. What are you hearing as far, because you mentioned about what you said, 500,000 Black men across Tennessee?
Absolutely.
What are you hearing from that demographic or across the board when it comes to folks wanting to vote? And then if they were able to be registered, because I know we've got some barriers there, right? How likely would they be to vote, considering there's such an exclusion of them to begin with? Because you start to develop that apathy, right? Like, forget it, I'm not going to vote. It's not going to matter. They don't even want me to vote.
One of the craziest things that I always tell people is we overlook people who have been incarcerated, right, and have changed their lives around. The 2 things that you get in prison, you get therapy and you'll get political education. Most people have never had to navigate a system the way you would if you are someone that is in prison, especially if you're doing some, long time. And so when we're out registering voters, specifically at events where people are just coming up and they're interested about what we're doing, if we had 10 people come up, 7 out of 10 are people who need their rights restored. I like to tell people all the time, like, most of the people who are very interested in voting are people who have been impacted by the system. So people who have done time, they are typically the people who are most concerned with the folks that are passing bills that govern their life, because they understand the impact that policies have on them directly more than the average person.
Wow. That's a great conversation. We're about to go back live. Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, so we're about to go back live. Thank you guys. I've seen some comments here. I think Renee said Marsha Blackburn has not done anything for Tennessee. One of the things that we're about to go back live, but one of the things that's interesting to me is that you don't really see her out a lot at all.
Yeah.
But we'll piggyback on that right after. We're going to go back live in just a second. Flipping over to live. Yes, sir. I gotta go right back live. Thank you so much. 92Q Nashville's R&B and Throwbacks. We are here for our 92Q live election coverage with Harriet Wallace. And we've been having some really good conversation. Guys, jump us and join in on YouTube. I know if you might be in your car, whenever you get to your destination, sign into our YouTube. Just go to 92Q Nashville. Be a part of this conversation, because we're really digging into these races and just digging down to really, we were having a good conversation just talking about Tennessee. And we were talking about at one point, and Tequila, Tennessee was blue.
Yeah.
At one point it was blue. And so why do you think it shifted? Because it wasn't that long ago. Why do you think it shifted?
I think what ended up happening was we lost some engagement on the Democratic side. The party began to get older, as my colleague here has alluded to on the Republican side. I think there is a transfer of power happening within the parties, and younger, more innovative people are coming forth and they want to do things different. And I think what happened was people forgot, they forgot about Tennessee. When Al Gore ran for president, over 1 million people had moved to Tennessee in between that time, and they didn't know who Al Gore was. And I like to say that Tennessee, the South, but specifically Tennessee, operates from this legacy mindset. Even in Nashville, when you talk about who should be at the table, we always go to who your daddy is or who your people are and what's your last name. And now we're seeing people come into power through things like TikTok and innovation and fashion and social media. So you have a new generation
generation of influence, a new generation of leadership. And if there's ever any indication as to how you can quickly lose power and lose influence, it is how Tennessee became a Republican state. If you are not engaging new and innovative leaders, if you are not creating a table that is big enough for people to pull up a seat, you are going to be left out, and people are going to shift, and people aren't going to know who you are.
Well, I hate to hear that for the Democrats, but let me chime in here and say, first off, we love Tennessee. Trace loves Tennessee, absolutely. And people are flocking to Tennessee in droves. They're coming here from these blue states. They're running away from them. They're running out of New York. They're running out of California. And they're not coming because of Gloria Johnson. They're not coming because of Justin Jones. There's nothing Justin Pearson said that inspired them to move here. They're coming here because what was done by Republican leadership. The problem is the Republican leadership didn't peacefully transition the power appropriately, probably. And that's where our personnel problems come in. But it doesn't mean our principles are wrong. Our principles are no income tax, and everyone at this table probably appreciates there's no income tax. That's a good Tennessee value, and the Tennessee Republicans have doubled down on that several times. We've made it unconstitutional in every way. The sales tax that you see in Nashville that's so high, it's almost unaffordable. That's your local Democrat leadership. And those are things that actually scare people away from Tennessee. They say, well, we don't want to move to Tennessee if you become like Nashville, but we do want to live in places like Franklin or places like Mount Juliet, places that are Republican leadership. So again, don't confuse our personnel for old leadership. I do understand that. I'm fighting that. But the new ideas are coming with good conservative principles.
Awesome. And so we've actually, we're going to be checking out in the field, and we were talking about the economy and local impact. So that's a great segue because, Harriet, we've actually got somebody on the phone right now that can kind of give us an update as we're talking about the economy. Who do we have on Zoom right now?
So we've got Lonnie Wade from Metro Social Services here in Nashville. He's one of our managers that, well, I say our because that's, look, I moonlight Metro Social Services and my people that are on the phone. Lonnie Wade works a lot with our families. And for those who don't know, Metro Social Services, that department sees a lot of the folks who are dealing with the consequences of the economy when they need help with housing, with transportation, with job access, family support. Metro Social Services is where you go. Lonnie, how are you tonight? Absolutely. Thank you for agreeing to be on tonight. I know you've got your hands tied, got the kiddos, so we're just going to hold you for a minute. Listen, we're talking about the economy tonight because as we know, we've got candidates that are on the ballot, but really, we've got issues that are on the ballot. The economy we're seeing is one of the top issues, if not the top for many people, that's on the ballot tonight. In social services, you're seeing and working with a lot of families who are coming in who can't afford to eat, can't afford their medicine, can't afford to get around town and get to work if they even have a place to work. Just really explain to us what you all are seeing in Metro Social Services. What is the need like in Nashville? Wow. Lonnie, one of the other things that I saw from the statistics, the outcome of the food drive that social services had the other day, majority of people, check this out, everybody, majority of the people who received a food box were 56 years and older. Are you surprised from what you're seeing in social services, what you're feeling in the city? Are you surprised that that to see and hear that number? Hmm. And let's be clear, you're talking about Nashville. Like, being real, everybody, Nashville families are suffering. They are suffering in the Bible Belt.
In the Bible Belt.
Not a surprise. The economy is such
it's not. So
an important issue.
It's definitely hoping that we can see some change, especially from this election tonight. Hopefully we can see some change. And as long as everybody has casted their vote and letting their voice be heard, then we can shift this, because we shouldn't see this kind of need, especially with our seniors. We shouldn't see this kind of need with people needing basic assistance for just basic living. We've definitely hopefully got to make some change with that. Lonnie, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being a part of this live election special. Guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back, give you a little bit of update right now. You're going to see this on YouTube. Right now, Kamala Harris is at 3 electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 23. And so far, you're at, for the U.S. House, the U.S. Senate is 28 Democrats, the Republicans 40. So they've picked up 1 at this point. We'll give you some details of some of the local races as we get that in. Coming up on our YouTube channels. Check us out right now at 92qnashville.com. It's the 92Q Election Night Special right here on 92Q. Conversation going.
So unpack it.
I love it.
Your
I love it.
response to what Lonnie was saying.
Yeah, he mentioned Nashville having the highest tax, and that's untrue. Nashville sales tax is 9.725, and then you have Murfreesboro, Johnson City, and other surrounding counties who actually have a higher sales tax. He also talked about some of the things with the economy being better under the Republican rule. But we saw in the last General Assembly in 2024, where Senator Charlene Oliver and State Rep Afton Ben proposed a bill that would eliminate the 4% grocery tax that was sought.
No, you can't do that, though.
And show it could be done. It passed the House, and it got a lot of negative conversation around it in the Senate, and it failed in the Senate. And so, I always have this conversation with people when they talk about Republicans being good on the economy. Republicans can be good on the economy for people who make over $400,000 a year. But if you're like myself and you are living off of an average working class salary, you carry the burden of that good on the economy narrative that Republicans like to put out.
So Trace, I have a question about that. So do you still think, as you're a Republican, that the idea of tax cuts for the wealthy and I think it still lingers out there, the idea of trickle down economics, is that still something that is I guess deepened into the bedrock of Republican Party? Is that still something they feel like is the best thing for the country?
I think people are starting to be more educated on the tax structure system as a whole, which is why I'm more excited when you were talking about the economy as a whole, because really, as we talk about the budget, it's not that any of the folks in the General Assembly would have said the grocery tax is a bad idea. It's the fact that, and specifically, long-term Nashville Senator Doug Henry, Democrat, leading Republican, explained that the grocery is like the life bill because everybody eats, so they keep that low, but it's the blood of the budget, where you can tax anything, but the grocery, at least that's a consistent, and then they can lower other things. So that's why you see the sales tax, holidays, and whatnot. Because if you cut the groceries out altogether, then you've basically cut the bloodline of the Tennessee state budget, which is nobody would want.
Which a quarter comes from Nashville, by the way, and we don't get all of that back in our budget. So I also want to mention that. But I hear what you're saying, but if that be true, why not tax these major corporations that are coming in the state? Why give away all these tax breaks to them, but refuse to take the heartbeat or the blood of the budget, which is the grocery tax that impacts our elderly, our low income communities the most? Why are we paying for our governor's friends to be able to move into Nashville, by the way? Because you also mentioned that most people are moving to Tennessee because they want to live in Franklin, but the numbers would suggest otherwise, when at one point we had over 150 people a day moving to Nashville. And in fact, you also brought up that nobody's moving here for Justin Jones and Justin Pearson. And I was trying to get my neighbor to call in, who recently moved to Nashville. And when I met her and introduced myself, and she followed me on social media, the first thing she said was, "Oh my God, you have a picture of Justin Jones on your page. That's part of the reason why I came to Nashville."
Really?
So I would say that, a lot of the things that we hear are just narratives, and they're not based in fact.
A little misinformation.
Malinformation.
That's a difference.
I don't know any corporations or any businesses that have publicly claimed they've been attracted because of the Tennessee 3.
I didn't say business. I said my neighbor.
Well,
but
I get it.
You said businesses.
Hey, I'm not saying they're not internet celebrities. I mean, there's a lot of money in this, and I see their views. They get a lot of views, a lot of TikTok hits, and all the stuff. And I get that. But we're talking about effective leadership, and that's different.
It depends on how you define effective. Because there are some people that would argue that they didn't pay attention to what was happening in the Tennessee General Assembly until they saw a Justin Jones and a Justin Pearson. So I think that awareness and education is just as effective as you would say, passing a bill in a Republican supermajority that won't even turn on your mic.
But I think the big thing that I think we all can agree on, that, I'd at least like to plant seeds in people's mind, is it is the economy, and it's the digital economy. I've talked so much about it, and I want to just, we talk about name, image, and likeness for football players and people. And that's great. But remember, folks, just like they had a bill for Elvis and the AI, and I love Elvis and all that. But folks, remember, if you're a digital creator in this age, we're on YouTube, we're creators. What if they steal our name, image, and likeness? We're coming into an economy where we fuel these corporations with our data and our information, and we need to understand that we have the gold and oil that they're looking for. And as long as we protect our American citizens in the new digital age, we can have that kind of wealth, and we can do amazing things together. So that's really what I think. When it comes to economy, with the new president, they need to talk about how you get that money to Americans, and it goes back to secure our money, secure our American ID, and secure our economy.
Wow. Hey, come on now.
You want me to disagree? I
do want you to disagree.
Like money.
Absolutely.
It's not about money.
Because I've never known you to hesitate.
I'm not.
You
I'm
said
just letting him get his point out. But
it.
I'm like, I think Republicans, as he keeps doing, like to reflect back to economy, right? Because all of the narratives that they talk about are about money, and people who don't have money are, generally attracted to those conversations, not realizing that they're not talking about money for you. They're talking about money for a select few.
No, I was talking about money for all of us, specifically.
But let's be real. When we
I'm
talk
being
about
very real, very real.
This digital control, I don't think it's just about money and protection. I think it is also about controlling the narrative. If not, you wouldn't have crazy folk like Elon Musk buying up Twitter and using it to push a Republican narrative. I think that Republicans want to control the digital information. Yes, for protections, maybe that's like 10%, but the other 90% is rooted in money and is rooted in data, but it's also rooted in control, because the person who has the data can control a lot. I don't think it's about protection.
But
I think
have
it's
your
about
data, and you're not being paid for it, is my point. They're already stealing it from you.
I get it. I understand. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm not disagreeing that we live in a age where people are data fishing everywhere you turn around. Your digital footprint grows, whether you want it or not. They're tracking your phone. They're tracking the things that you like, what you buy with your car. I'm not in denial about that. I'm just saying that the Republican Party is not here to save us from that. They're here to control that.
Traces.
Okay, Trace. Well, you might need to be an independent or a Democrat, Trace.
Yeah, because it's just not
You sounded
been.
like a
This is why
Democrat,
Marcia
Trace.
didn't want to talk to Trace, because these are real issues, folks. I mean, I can't express enough, and I don't want to waste too much of the time, but it's so important, because this is it, folks. We're literally communicating through data and devices. And the thing is we appreciate this. I mean, we appreciate the services of Facebook, and we like to get on Twitter and YouTube. So we appreciate it. We're just not being paid and protected properly, and it's so that they can keep the control. But if we understand that as things move accordingly, we're going to be able to do things that we want to do, and we're going to be paid for just participating like we do every day. Like, when you shared the Uber ride and you got $10 and I got $10, well, all of a sudden the $10 stopped, but the data didn't stop, did it? How many Uber rides should you have been paid for on a commission? I'm not going to be upset about that.
Trace, do me a favor. When you're speaking like Trace the Democrat, raise your right hand. And when you're speaking like Trace the Republican, raise your left hand.
I'm for America.
Confused.
He's for America.
I'm confused. I thought this was a partisan conversation.
Again, this is going to
We're
be a good time of transformation.
It is. We're about to go back to live. We're going to do some weather. Big thank you to everybody that's still on YouTube. Helen Fitzpatrick is on there. Shout out to you, Tia Dixon. Yours truly, Toya. Thank you guys so much for joining. We really appreciate you guys being a part of the conversation. You can definitely jump in. As you know, we're still we're waiting on a lot of the local races to find out. Nothing has really been too much reported at this point. But thank you guys for being a part of YouTube. About to go back live.
Alex said he's waiting to be let in. Okay.
'92Q. Welcome back to the '92Q election night special with myself, Sean Good, and Harriet Wallace. We got some special guests in the studio, and we have someone else on Zoom. Harriet, who would you have that's out there in the field right now?
Absolutely. We've got Alex Apple. He is the Deputy Communications Manager for Mayor Freddie O'Connell here in Nashville. As you all know, for those who went to the polls in early voting or today, you know that we've got several folks who are on the ballot, but also you've got transit. If you're in Davidson County, transit once again made it to the ballot. Now, we know a few years back it did not succeed. But Mayor O'Connell is hoping that this time there will be a different outcome. Alex, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. So, Alex, you are at the watch party tonight, which I understand. What's the feel? What's the vibe?
To quote the great, who actually was supposed to run for president, Kanye West, do you have the power to let power go? I mean, that's a real question. You got the power to let power go? You know what I'm saying? I mean, and you see with a lot of these politicians is the answer is no. And so they go in with good intentions and they go in wanting to help, and then they just get corrupted. It's time to go, folks.
I actually, I don't agree with using Kanye, but I actually agree with you on that. In 2020 and 2021, we did a survey called the Black Print, where we went into Black neighborhoods and asked people, like, what do you want? And one of those questions, because during that time policing was an issue, was about policing. And what was revealed in that study was a lot of people said that they actually trust police more than they trust politicians. So I think people, yes, it was a shocker to me as well. I think people don't equate Trump to politics the way that they should.
Well, remember, they told him I'm not a politician.
Yes, and that resonates with people. They see him as a businessman more than they do a politician, even though he is absolutely playing politics. In fact, I would argue most businessmen play politics.
I mean, he's like, I am a businessman. I mean, That's Donald Trump. And that's his deal for the world, so... I mean, again, he's been doing this. We're just seeing the makings of an end, but I would say that he's been on his own to try to start a political party. I mean, he's been on his own deal for many, many, many cycles.
Yeah, I think people are, what I'm hearing from people who are leaning or supporting Trump is that, and people who would traditionally not support a candidate like Donald Trump, they want something different. And to me, Donald Trump represents the same thing, but I have to recognize that I exist within the political bubble and I'm very aware of every little detail that's happening. The average person isn't. They see Donald Trump as something that is different from your average politician. And, we can argue all day within the political sphere that he's not. We know that to be true, but we have to be very intentional and careful about not isolating people who feel like they aren't being heard or they aren't being considered in the political narrative.
Well, and let me just really add one thing was we put so much on the president of the United States. I don't care who it is. The truth is, folks, I'm a legislative guy. Okay. I spent a lot of time in the state legislature helping aid those members. And let me tell you, the legislature is where it's at. It's where your voice should be heard. It should be the governing body. The president is supposed to be a governor of a few things, but our governors, the 50 and their legislatures, are supposed to be. So you heard me argue for a long time the 17th Amendment. We've got to change the United States Senate because the Senate is what has put us in debt. The Senate is what's put us in war. And because those are long-term people. So it's important to look at the down ballot, folks. And again, as information and technology and we're able to be educated more on issues and be connected, I think you're going to start seeing people move away from parties enough because they're like, hey, I actually care about this issue. And you're wrong on the issue here. And at least maybe that's my political utopia. But again, education and information is going to change. Like, we're in the information age times 2. That's why you hear about my digital economy. Everything is going to change. I believe we're in a truly transformation period, and I hope we capitalize politically and move the democratic process where everyone's educated and can be engaged.
So just kind of give you guys an update, especially those that are on YouTube right now. It looks like, of course, as we, it's not surprising, Tennessee's been called for Donald Trump. And right now,
thank you, Tennessee.
Yeah. So also when it comes down to the race for U.S. Senate right now, Marsha Blackburn is at 264,000 votes, where Gloria Johnson's at 70,000 votes. So,
which we were expecting.
Which we were expecting. Again, she had a pretty decent ground game, but I just don't think it was just going to be enough.
Well, I'll claim maybe I might be a lone Republican, so I understand. But I would tell you, in all seriousness, really, I think, friends, it is just, I think these are mainly Republican voters in Tennessee, but they care about issues, and what they're upset is stagnant old leadership. And so I think they're going to kind of push at the legislature to act appropriately. But look, the policies, man, people like the Republican ways. They like it that around here.
But is Marsha Blackburn, we'll have this question when we come back, but is Marsha Blackburn really, really pushing the correct policy for all of Tennessee?
No.
And so we're going to put her back in the office is what it looks like.
That's what the elector said.
Tennessee is a non-voting state. We're looking at those numbers, but let's look at how many people actually don't vote. That is what we need to be looking at, because we have less than half of our population making a decision for the entire state. So we can't give credit to a party when half of the people that live here aren't voting.
Look at the numbers in the Republican and Democrat primary. They were I'll give a shout out to the Democrat Marquita Bradshaw. If you look at her numbers and Trace Williams' numbers, they were similar. And then the Democrat and Republican, the paid for nominees, they have like the same.
All right, we got to
numbers.
switch over.
Want to do the results?
Welcome back to the 92Q election night special. We have got some projections to make, Harriet.
So listen, there is no shocker. Here in Tennessee, we're going to start here. You want me to start with Tennessee?
Start with Tennessee. Let's
Okay.
go get it out of the way.
So Sean was just giving us some results here. Marsha Blackburn against Gloria Johnson. Right now, again, not a surprise. I think we were all looking at this as the potential outcome. Marsha Blackburn appears to be taking Tennessee. Gloria Johnson, we talked about, that. I love me some Gloria. She's just a wonderful woman. But as a candidate as well, she really gave it her all.
She did.
But it just couldn't bring home the win. But we're not surprised. Tennessee is a red state. She already had an uphill battle. And Tequila, as you were just talking about just a second ago, is it really, and I'm not trying to minimize it, a win is a win, right? She, getting the dub, right?
Yeah.
But to the point that you were just making, how much of a win is it if not that many people are voting anyway in Tennessee?
Absolutely. We have this narrative that Tennessee is a red state, and I keep saying Tennessee is a non-voting state, which is why the Equity Alliance exists. We are 51st in voter turnout. We vote the least out of every state in the country. And that is something that I think we need to turn that statistic on its head, but we also need to be careful about how we frame what Tennessee is, because it leads to, one, a lot of voter apathy and people don't feel like their votes matter. But then two, we also know that our Tennessee lawmakers make it harder and harder every year for people to get out and cast a ballot.
Yeah.
They do. So what do we need to do in the state of Tennessee to engage people to be more active in this process and vote?
I mean, first we need to start with voter registration, but the biggest thing that we need to do is we need to break up the Republican supermajority so that we can change some of these laws around how we govern democracy. Until we break up the Republican supermajority, most of the things that the issues that people care about, such as rights restoration and, eliminating the grocery tax and, making sure that the minimum wage is fair and Medicare for all and all those things, legalize marijuana. Until we break up the state supermajority, we're never going to even have a fighting chance to pass those things. So I think the biggest thing is focusing at the state level. I know we're talking about the presidential election, but most of the things that impact us directly happen at the state and local level.
People forget that. Everyone always, we're going to vote for a new president or even mayor. But then they really underestimate those, congressional races, the state races. Heck, sometimes even Metro Council. We know the Metro Council votes; those fall under the shadow of the mayoral race, which they'll happen at the same time. But we have seen the impact of those races. So, speaking of races, we've also got some numbers on the presidential race. Sean, I've got former President Donald Trump taking Florida, Kamala Harris taking Massachusetts and Maryland. Still pretty early. You've got some numbers also on the presidential race.
So, yeah, let's get it updated here. So, really, there's not we also know Tennessee was projected, so we understand that. So
For Trump.
Yeah, that was projected for Trump. Looks like right now, also South Carolina, that one point that was too close to call, but they called that for Donald Trump as well. And so we're still paying attention to North Carolina for sure, with about 9% of the vote counted. Right now, Kamala Harris is at 51% of that vote, and that is one of the states that we're trying to figure out, is she really going to take that? Because it really wasn't anticipated. It became in play here recently, especially with the hurricane situation. A lot of this came in play, and then unfortunately some of the rhetoric that were coming out from the Republican candidate, and it started to come into play. And I think that in from watching some of these polls and some of the other across other states, really what's transitioned to be at the top of the mind is women's rights.
Absolutely. That has been, I think, next to what economy and immigration, that has been one of the most talked about issues. And we know that that has also been a great driver for women to really step out and vote in larger numbers. And of course, everyone is going to consider, a woman candidate on the ballot as possibly one of the drivers for women outpacing men in voting in this election, which numbers are showing that. But reproductive rights absolutely is an issue that is on the ballot. We've got somebody coming up who's going to shed some light on that for us. But, going back to the race and the numbers, we know 270 is the golden number here for with regard to electoral college for president. So far at this point, Kamala Harris bringing in 27 electoral votes, and then President Trump, former President Trump, with 90. And, there's been a lot of discussion about this. Those swing states are critical. Sissy Brown chiming in on YouTube, she's following the results too. Hey, Sissy, Megan Barry, she says, is losing big. We're going to check in on that race here just a little bit. But when it comes to those swing states, those critical swing states, when we're looking at the president's seat, a lot of folks discussing how for VP Harris, she has a shot if she could clear Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. But then, of course, Donald Trump, if he brings out Michigan and Pennsylvania, that could really derail her opportunity. So we're going to be watching those states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Let's talk the U.S. Senate race, where we've got the 50 seats, 32 Democrats, 42 Republicans at this moment. One of the seats have flipped. I'm going to do some research dig and see which seat that was. We know that's not, going to happen here in Tennessee. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
We'll see.
So as far as the House, again, we're talking about Congress at this moment. 24 Democrats are taking 24 of the seats. Republicans are taking 44 of those seats. Across the board, on the federal level, President, Senate, House, we're seeing more red than blue. Again, still very early.
Still very early.
Still very early. So everyone, it's going to be a long night, probably a long couple of, long week, few days. We've got a ways to go.
We do. And because of that, we want to make sure that we kind of keep things a little light as the stress of the night continues to move on. So how about I give you another song? Here's Anthony Hamilton. This is Queen right here on 92Q. Welcome back to the 92Q election night special. We're continuing to get some more updates in. We do know that right now the race for U.S. House, which is between Megan Barry and Mark Green, looks like it's favoring in Mark Green's favor at this moment. So it's kind of swinging his direction. I'll give you some updates on that in just a second. Right now, Mark Green is at 51,000 votes. Megan Barry is at 16, just under 17,000 votes. And she's one of somebody that had a very strong ground game. And here's the interesting thing about this race. When she got into it, he was getting out. He wasn't going back into it. She gets into the race. Megan Barry, very popular person here in Nashville for sure, former mayor. She gets into the race. She starts to see some momentum. People start donating, getting into her campaign, and all of a sudden he's back into the race. Now, Tracy, you're part of the Republican Party. So what was that about?
Absolutely. Well, first off, I want to give a shout out. I say Senator Green, Congressman Green. Good for Congressman Green. Keep moving. But I would be wrong if I didn't actually take, game recognized game. Former Mayor Megan Barry is a political beast. I mean, she can campaign with the best of them.
She can.
I have respect. I think just respectfully, as I've tried to tell my friends over here tonight, look, Tennesseans are Republicans, and they appreciate the "Make America Great" mantra, and they want President Trump. And Mark Green has decided he's going to carry that banner, and Megan Barry decided she wasn't. And fate, which I'm not sure that Megan was going to be able to take this district anyways. Mark, this is the second time running in it for him, so it's not a first time for him. Megan's been introducing herself to a lot of new people, I assume, unless she knew everybody, but I assume she's, this is a first explorer for her. Someone that runs races. Look, it's hard to get out there and people that, first off, don't care. We're in this bubble where we think everybody cares. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody cares. And unless their pocketbook's hurting enough, they really don't care. This is kind of I think it's a robotic vote, if you will. Republicans are for the Republican. Mark Green's going to carry the banner. But like I said, respect, because Megan Barry certainly, she hustles. And I think Congressman Green would tell you the same thing.
That's true. But like I said, going back to it, he wasn't running. He got out. And then all of a sudden he jumps back in. And so it was very, very interesting. You weren't going to go back into the House. And all of a sudden she jumps in the race. And so if she hadn't jumped in the race, is it because of her?
I think our party has, as I've been saying, again, for the record, I'm 36 years old. And I think our party's just having a hard time. Like, that we have a great bench. It's time to move over. And I think he was willing to move over, and then they got worried. Like, hey, you gotta let the new generation of leaders step up. And so he had a moment to allow that. And then I think maybe the money came down and said, you've got to guard the seat, Mark. We got to guard the seat. And he did. So thank you for doing that.
There's a lot at stake, and I know, he and President Trump, they were pretty chummy. He leaned on him a lot. You're talking about, war military hero, if you will. Many refer to him as that. I know we had a conversation a lot of times, or one time in particular, we had a conversation where he was sharing his role in the capture and takedown of Saddam Hussein. I mean, that is pretty significant. And, being in business, that's a big deal. Being in the military, that's also a big deal for our voters. I'm just understanding their protection and guardianship of the country, and that's something that Donald Trump really touted during their time. But hey, listen, we've got some more results I want to share, Sean. So a name that we all know, Andy Ogles, looks like he is trending with what looks like is going to be a win, 76% of the vote so far. His opponent bringing in just about 20, rounded up, if you will, 20.1%. For the Tennessee House District 6 seat, we have John Rose there, 78% of the vote. We've already discussed Green and Barry. There's 73% for Mark Green and about 24% for Megan Barry.
And the Andy Ogles race is another example of just Republicans just voting Republican, because this man has been just buried in scandal for a while now. Campaign finance issues, all this stuff, and still yet Tennessee says, bro, let's put him back in his seat because he's okay. I mean, it's just interesting that we want to put that aside, but we're doing the same thing for the Republican side on the president. We're putting aside all the issues that in many situations, especially Republicans, they stand on values, yet Republicans continue to keep putting people back in these seats that don't meet those values.
The politically corrupt are doing that in the parties, to be clear. And I think that's how this all started with Congressman Ogles. Again, another opportunity where we could groom other leadership. Thank you for your service, but it looks like it should be termed out, according to a lot of reports, lying and cheating with political money. It's really bad. We can't have that. As a young Republican, I'm embarrassed by this. I rebuke this. We can stand on the principles, but I'm with you. I'm sorry about that. But look, again, they're going to stand with Donald Trump, and that's what he's going to do. So if he does that, he's getting the vote tonight.
That's true. And right now we're at, as far as Electoral College, you've got Donald Trump is at 107, and it looks like I believe Harris was at 70. So we're still moving. We got to get to 270. And so we are still making some moves. Right now, Pennsylvania has got 8% of the vote in, with Kamala Harris at 70%, 72% of that vote. So right now, that's a state that looks like she's doing well in, with a lot of early vote counting. So we're going to stay on top of that. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we've actually got some people out in the field. We're going to check in with them. We still got reproductive rights to talk about. We've got a lot to catch up on. This is the 92Q Election Night Special right here on 92Q.
Thank you so much.
Hey guys, thank you guys for staying with us on YouTube. Really appreciate it. And I apologize for that little delay in being muted. We figured out what that was. Not sure what happened there. When you guys get a chance, put the chat back up for me. But thank you guys for being a part of this.
It was YouTube election fraud on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
It was muted. We got it fixed.
They didn't want you to talk about it. The political narcissism has really kind of got me kind of chuckling, because I'm like so involved in this.
Yeah,
so much.
we're good.
I just read about stuff and you're like, everybody's a victim. Oh, they got me. you know
what? I want to go back to something you were talking about, which I thought was interesting. When you were talking about not changing the guard, bringing in some of the, grooming and bringing up some of the newcomers, right? Because, some of the best leaders groom their successor, right? And have a succession plan.
It's part of great legacy.
Exactly. And then when we look at when President Biden stepped down, and folks were like, oh, this is a great opportunity to bring up some of the newer, younger, Democratic talent to maybe get a shot at it. We saw Kamala Harris make her run for the bid, and she got it, which, go ahead. I totally get it, because she was making that run, and then they were like, no, have a seat. Joe Biden's turn now. He's been waiting decades.
Politics.
Right. So what are you all's thoughts about there not fully being a change of the guard, or a grooming and an upbringing of the new talent, of the new wave, just a lot of the same old folks, really? Or do you feel like they are bringing up new talent?
Absolutely not in the GOP, not in our party. Which, again, remember, I kind of come from things maybe at such a high level, but again, this is warfare, folks, and it can be civil, and we appreciate the peaceful transition of power. But remember, like, when most people don't gain power and then say, oh, do you have the power to let power go? Can you actually be a great?
That's true.
Can you be a great American? That, honestly, President Trump, in my opinion, the best thing he could have done, especially wanted to run this time, was just last time. What if he actually would have said, I'm not even going to run. I'm going to make them want me so bad. Maybe that's me, but President Polk, the one that's buried up the street, did it. He said, I got a plan and an agenda. I want 4 years and I'm out of here. And he did it. And that's such a great American thing to do if you can do it. But, then Roosevelt, it's not that Roosevelt Roosevelt kind of destroyed the U.S. in a lot of ways, economy-wise, but he stayed 12 years. Again, it doesn't mean he didn't go in with the right intentions and stuff, but so these folks they don't just like come and leave. And we've got to, you don't want to put so much political term limits, but the people want, my poll says term limits. They want term limits.
I agree.
I want term limits.
I think term limits. I think that really needs to be a heavy conversation when it comes to the Congress, and because we have people that have been in seat way too long. I mean, on both sides of the party.
Absolutely.
And I think we definitely have to have that in order to have fresh ideas, in order for the country, in order for our government to truly look like our country, because it doesn't.
Can I give a great economic example of why, even more so for this? Now, this really gets your mind boggling, but folks, there's 435 seats in the House. There's 100 senators at every time there's one president. Since 1917, I would argue that our country really went down the tubes in 1917. That's when all the real bad stuff happened. Now, in a sense, in a snapshot, it was great for the 1900s, but we're from the 1900s, I believe, in this room.
Right.
But the 1900s are really, I mean, they're genuinely over, folks. We're in a time, I keep saying, a time of transformation, reconstruction. They called it in 1860. We're at the same time, but parallel, different. And I would tell you that, again, these members of Congress, they're all from kind of the same families. And if you think about the past 100 years, what the turnover has been, now I would tell you $35 trillion of debt is from certain specific people in this country. And so term limits has allowed people to go in there and they get appropriations and they never stop, and they've fed their families off the United States workers for so long. And that's what term limits would stop. The revolving door of those people getting their money every time off the American worker.
Well, you raised a good point. I think term limits is a start, but we also got to look at just how much money has been spent in the last 6 months alone. I mean, I read somewhere that Democrats spent $1 billion on digital ads in Pennsylvania. $1 billion. So it's really difficult for a younger person to come and jump in politics. I mean, if you are not getting the blessing of the political elite, you're going to simply be outspent.
Right. Because everybody's backed by super PACs.
I mean, and that's from a federal level all the way down to a local level.
My opponent had $13 million, and she was endorsed by the president twice. Those news stations that say they're so equal, they're not, okay? The only one was Fox 17 that actually has ever allowed me to speak. Thank you to them. And the Tennessean was fair to me. They posted David Palacios. But I just say that as an example of, folks, it's because Gloria Johnson and Marsha Blackburn were the choices, and you will take this. Do you not understand? Did we not see it at the presidential level? Do we not see it here? Look at the numbers and look at the money. You will take our political candidates. It's our primaries, except the state taxpayer will pay for them. That's a big problem.
Wow. That's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. We're going to continue. We're going to be coming back live in just a second. We've actually got somebody on the phone. Isn't that right, Leviticus? Who do we have on the phone right now? Okay, so we have Corey, Dr. Dandridge, and Tennessee GOP on the phone. So we're going to come back live with Dr. Dandridge to get into reproductive rights and talk about that.
And Corey as well.
Yeah, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we can bring Corey and Dr. Dandridge both up in the same room at the same time. So we'll go back live in just a couple of minutes. But again, thank you guys on YouTube. Dantrell, hey, what's up to you, Dantrell? Thank you for being a part of this. How are you guys feeling so far? 27 electoral votes to 105 with Trump ahead right now, but it's still early. We know Tennessee has been called. At this point, we know Marsha Blackburn will hang on to her seat. Looks like Mark Green's going to hang on to his seat at this point inside of Tennessee. So we're still waiting on numbers about this transit program. We're definitely waiting on that to stay on top. And so we'll see. Andy Ogles is going to keep his seat as well. It's still early on in the night, guys. It's still early on. And to anticipate the idea of us getting a result before we go to sleep is probably not going to happen.
No, it's not.
It's not going to happen.
What a shame.
I would have loved to have seen it. But
that's when these people could prove to us that our election system's so great. Look, we got the job done. Now, again, you can have it verified, but it would look nicer if it was more certain.
That's true. That is true. All right, about to go back live in 30 seconds. Welcome back to the 92Q election night special. Give you that little dramatic music in there. Just kind of make you feel like it's just so
This
serious.
is dramatic.
It is dramatic, but we're trying to keep it as lighthearted as possible, even as all these results come in. It is early in the night right now. Just kind of giving you an update on the presidential election. You have Kamala Harris at 27 electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 105. It is still early. Pennsylvania right now is trending in the Harris direction, as well as North Carolina is trending in that Harris direction. So we'll continue to keep watching those. And also Michigan right now is trending to go blue. So, she's still battling for that blue wall for sure. And definitely trying to take Pennsylvania. She spent a lot of time and a lot of money in Pennsylvania.
She did. I think across the board, I think it's fair to say for both of them, but I think across the board, they both pulled out every single tool in their arsenal possible. But again, right now, things are just so in the air because we're seeing people vote even more so this year on issues rather than the politician. And so, personality always comes into play when you're talking about politics. But this year, we had a lot of people in the last, between, the last couple of presidents, we've seen families that are going hungry. We've seen, women who are upset and men upset about not being able to make choices about their bodies. We've seen people not being able to afford gas. We're seeing people upset about what's going on at the border. So a lot of issues are on the ballot, as we've been saying. One of those is reproductive rights. And we've got two great folks who are going to join us in this conversation. They are literally on the front lines and have been doing so for several years now in key positions as far as reproductive rights and advocacy. We've got Antoine and Corey who are joining us now. Good evening, you guys. How you doing? Oh, thank you so much. Corey, how you doing over there? You had a long day. You get enough rest to hang with us for a few minutes? Thank you so much. Corey, I want to start with you. Um, Reproductive rights, it is without question on the ballot. And from what we're seeing in some polls and surveys, it is also an issue that is driving people to the polls. Some candidates have even gotten into the race because of some challenges right now when it comes to women making choices for their bodies. Talk to me about what are you seeing from where I know you've been doing some work ground level there. What are you seeing? What are you hearing from people? How important is this issue in terms of it could, swing some races? You never know. Interesting. And Antoine, I know that you have discussed a lot because there is a piece of this argument that we often don't talk about. It is the inclusion of the man's voice, the father's voice. What piece are we missing there? Why is that left out? And are you hearing, are men being motivated by this issue to vote? Let's start with that. Are men being motivated by reproductive rights and to have your own choices? Is that motivating them to vote at all or no? I want to bring Tequila and Trace into this conversation. Trace, I'm going to start with you because President Trump has said, listen, I did what the people wanted. I gave it back to, at least that was my push, right? Not necessarily him, but that was his whole campaign and his mission. I'm going to give this choice back to the states. But others on the other side of this argument say that actually made things worse. And now you have doctors who are, they're saying, are afraid to make medical decisions because they've got to make a legal decision for themselves. Am I willing to risk my medical license? We're hearing stories about women who are risking their lives trying to get medical attention. You know, is where does this fall in terms of for the Republican Party, for Republican voters? How serious of an issue or a threat could reproductive rights be when it comes to the Republican vote?
Listen, ladies, we hear you. The Republican Party hears you. I think they're trying to figure out the best way to go about it. Excuse me. And because it does, like you said, we're talking specifically reproductive rights. But you know, the COVID thing with all the mandated shots, I mean, it was a big thing. All of a sudden people saw the same issue kind of differently. They understood it more in depthly, if you will, or a different angle or a different frame of reference. But more specifically, you know, I'm a states' rights guy. So I appreciate what I think is more concerning is how they can make a law and then 50 years later be like, oh, we kind of read that wrong. Huh? What, I mean, I guess you can, but look at what it has done. So we have to address it. And, you know, the GOP at the platform, you know, a lot of folks in Tennessee were not happy. Our senator actually loosened it, probably more like a Democrat. And people in Tennessee were not happy about that. So Tennessee wants to be pro-life. They are concerned about the life of the mother. So if it has to do with the life of the mother, they want to make sure that mother has every action and everything at her disposal to do is best for her was the aim. Now, is the legislation that passed doing that? Well, that's unfortunate. Sometimes you got to see how the process works, and they can maybe change it in January should they want. But yeah, I mean, I think my friend Tequila, and I'll pass it to you. You know, I appreciate that you go tell folks at Nashville what's up. We all should do that, but it's easier to do that than go to Washington and talk to 435 people that don't even know each other.
Trey says that you have the Republicans who are looking out for the women, wanting what's best for them. That's why I was framing it that way. Because if y'all can see her face,
he had no choice
like
but to pass it to me because he doesn't have a uterus, and that represents.
And I don't, and that's important that men should listen.
Well, that's what's going on right now in our General Assembly and in Washington, D.C. You have a bunch of people who don't have uteruses making decision for those of us who do. And what we need is an afterthought because, of course, they're trying to protect us. Let's be real. If we want to talk about how Planned Parenthood was started, it was started as population control. And it wasn't an issue until the white population started dwindling. And now it is, how do we stop white women? Because if we want to be real, Black women keep our babies. We keep our kids at higher rates. It is white women who won't keep their kids when they're unmarried. And it is the white population that is set to be almost non-existent by 2052. So we can talk about policy all day, but let's be real. This is a numbers game. It's a numbers game.
I think Corey was saying pass the collection plate. I think that's pretty much what she was saying. Put it down right there.
What about the killing of? What about the killing of? Explain that side of it. We heard the reason to keep it. Explain the reason to kill it. Go that side. No, I was talking about the first pillar. Go back to the first pillar. Why would you said you have the right to keep it or kill it. So go, why would you justify killing it? That's narcissism. That's narcissism.
Come on now.
Well, you're not. You don't think they should. As of what? Murder?
All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to pause right there because we're going to continue this conversation because I like this and
Don't go
and
anywhere.
our public wants to hear this. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back. We're going to continue this conversation
Keyless biting her
talking
lips.
about reproductive rights because it is at the top of it is the number one issue
It
in
is.
this country.
It is.
So we'll be right back. It's the 92Q Election Night Special right here on 92Q.
I could see you probably literally shifting in your hotel chair. I already know. I'm grateful for y'all being here.
All right, Corey, Anthony, you both still there? Antoine. All right, I don't hear them.
I don't hear them either.
Make sure program
Hello?
3. There we go. All right,
back.
sweet. So we can continue this conversation, especially on our YouTube, because you guys are also live on our YouTube right now. So I definitely want to continue this conversation. So, so Trace, so go back to what you were talking about.
So again, I want first off, I appreciate strong women, and I certainly hope that if I can convince one to be around long enough, I can marry one that
Okay.
that knows what's best for her too. Like I respect I respect the idea. Look, listen, I couldn't imagine some of the situations that people are really in. I mean, we a lot of times you generalize these things, but these are very specific in a lot of cases, and they're traumatic, and it's a whole like. I don't think we do talk about the other side, like I said, murder, because in a lot of cases it can be. In some cases, it's not. It's like a horrible situation that people face that never they thought they'd be in this, and there are all those things. So I heard what the folks said. Going to abortion clinics and screaming at people is not appropriate. It's not helpful. Well, maybe it might be helpful, might scare people, but it's not helpful. We've got to do more than that, and it starts way before that. And again, that's a real conversation. But when you talk specifically with a doctor, medical freedom is a big deal. You should be able to do whatever's best for you, period. Because the truth is, a lot of these folks with degrees, and we appreciate the knowledge they bring us. But folks, they're just bringing you knowledge. You are the decision maker of your life in every aspect. That's why I kind
not
of
according to the law. And I think
we got to change the law. Then we got to change the law.
But
then.
all of that stops at the law.
We got to change the law because the law is the one that we pass and create, and so we have to change that law.
But that's not even true too, because as we look at the current election and we see how in which everything is moving, if you have people that restrict people's autonomy, and especially for Tennessee. So again, taking it back to reproductive justice, and you said like prevention as a form of method. Like when we think about it, ejaculation is voluntary, but ovulation is involuntary. So the responsibility is truly on those who have a penis to stop abortion, and yet we have yet to figure that out. It is easier to take the bullets out the gun than constantly wear a bulletproof vest. And so if we want to actually tackle the issue, then we have to have the foresight to be in a prevention mindset versus a reactionary mindset. And then in the communities that we live in, and we're talking about what are the reasons, people are dying because they're not having access to medical care. People are dying because they don't have access to keep a roof over their head, and they're impoverished. And this is all things that like our local government and the people we put in position by voting or not voting in our local elections, they are making the decisions for us regardless of what we want if we're not coming together and creating a North Star of what is needed for our community.
Said take
and I think something that we're really not speaking about too is that a lot of the abortion restrictions in states like Tennessee is also creating a situation where younger folks are not willing to actually start families. People are deciding they don't want to be parents because they don't want the risk of the health risk of carrying a child without proper medical care, and also are choosing to because it's not enough resources out there to ensure that being a family is something that they actually want to do. So I think that it's actually causing more fear to people who would likely want to be parents as well. And when you only focus on people who want access to abortion, you got to consider the people who would likely still want to have a child. So I mean, and I think that we're just generalizing this issue so much that it's become so politicized that it's not becoming an actual family and human being planning conversation.
And that is very true. You have this generation that is just not willing. They don't want to have kids.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to. They're choosing not to do it.
They're not getting married or having kids either.
Yeah.
Antoine was talking about the family and the human component. I had a 40-something-year-old woman who thought she was going through perimenopause, but didn't understand her body enough and realized that it was not perimenopause. It was actually a pregnancy.
Oh.
But because she had complications, she was married. Her youngest, I believe, was like already like close to his 20s. Like, what do I look like in my 40s starting over? I'm already at high risk. This could potentially kill me. And yes, we want this baby, but again, I'm 40 and pregnant and this could kill me. So is it better to be here with my family and my youngest is in his 20s all because to continue, or is it so that I can be here for the current family that is existing and thriving so I can best support them? And these are not easy decisions that people have to make.
Trace, I want to ask you about during the debate with Kamala Harris, you know, Donald Trump was talking about abortions after birth. As a Republican, how can I phrase? Do you believe that? Do you subscribe to that?
I think there are a lot of things like they're eating the dogs and they're eating the cats. Unfortunately, it's the shock value that moves people.
It does.
And so when we can say something bombastic, and that actually is what really is sad about this, because my heart genuinely breaks. I mean, I really could only imagine, I'm going to use a young girl. Let's just say a young girl literally with no resources, and her parents are going to be, they'll never know. They never knew, And then just to think like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And these are real situations. And to call her a murderer is not fair. So again, but that's what bombastically you say, and it's a shame.
A scare tactic, maybe?
It's a scare tactic. Right. But it moves people. Unfortunately, it moves people. They look at the election. We're all scared. Go vote. Which go vote. But look how they did it. It's not like they enticed us with, again, I want to bring it back to the digital economy. If we figure out how to get our new finances flowing, friends, we can have independent wealth for each of us. And so if you want to have a family, you'll be able to afford it while doing things you also love that maybe you would do for a job, but you don't necessarily have to do it for a job. You can do it because you love it, because you get money elsewhere.
Awesome. Yeah. Real quick, Jessica Foster, thank you for your comment. Term limits on the Supreme Court is definitely needed. That's a conversation we could definitely have. We're going to go back live.
Yes.
Welcome back to the 92Q Election Night Special. I'm your host, Sean Good, with Harriet Wallace. And we've had some really great conversation. We've had some great guests. We got, Trace Whitman here. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Tequila from Equity Alliance. Thank you. And we've had some really spirited conversation, which has been great. As we continue to see some of these results come in, we've still got some crucial battlegrounds that are out there. Georgia is still not called for. North Carolina is not called for. Pennsylvania is not called for. But we want to talk real quickly. We do have some results about the transit program. Is that right, Harriet?
Absolutely. We've got the early voting numbers in, and just keep in mind, everybody, how this works. All the early voting numbers have been tallied. They're falling in. But at this point, 0 out of 179 precincts are reporting. Those are coming from election day voting. So this could be tipped either way, but we're looking at from early voting. the transit referendum, 131,608 votes in favor of transit, 69,221 against. So obviously, the way it's looking right now from early voting, a majority of voters from early voting only are voting in favor of transit. But again, we still have to get numbers from all of the voting precincts for day of voting, election day. So we're keeping an eye out for you on that. I know Tequila's probably smiling over there. She wants her some transit. Even Trace, her neighbor, come to find out, said, I want some sidewalks too. So that's some good news there. I'm sure Mayor O'Connell, they are having a watch party. I'm sure they are excited about the way it's looking so far from early voting.
Yeah, so it's definitely, so we definitely want to hear from you. How are you feeling about tonight? It's 8 o'clock. You have most of the polls are closed, and so we're counting everything at this point now. So how are you feeling? You can definitely give us a call at 615-737-9292. You can also go to YouTube live at 92Q Nashville. Join in on the conversation. Just let us know how are you feeling about this. I mean, at this point, we have a lot of states that have very little precincts reporting right now. So This is going to be a long night. So if anybody thought that after they voted today, you was going to know before you went to bed, it's probably not going to happen. No. This is going to be a very long night because all the polls for weeks have been saying this is going to be a very, very tight race. And it's turning out to be that right now with the AP reporting it. Donald Trump has 120 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 99. So we've got a long way to go. We're just not getting started.
Yeah. I mean, and there are so many different sources, counting and everything like that's happening. CNN is reporting that Donald Trump has 154 of the electoral votes and Kamala Harris has 27. We're looking at the Senate race. We're talking about on the congressional level, 50 seats up for grabs, Democrats 32, Republicans 42. In the U.S. House, 218 up for grabs, 35 of those seats are blue. 77 of those seats so far are red. And as we're bringing it back to our discussion that we were having just before the break, Sean, a lot of this, we focus so much on the presidential race. Mm-hmm. As we've been saying, though, that down ballot voting is critical. And a lot of that brought us to the space where we are in this discussion, talking about reproductive rights. On our live stream here, I believe it's Jessica Foster saying term limits on the Supreme Court definitely needed because we see the role that the Supreme Court played in all of this. So I want to bring it back to the discussion. We had some really good discussion during the break. Trace, you were talking about, the scare tactics that were being used. Donald Trump saying during the debate with Kamala Harris that babies were being aborted after birth. Looking at some of the tactics being used to try and persuade people that this is the way to go. It is the way to go to have rights, the power with the state to say what each state will do. He said that's democracy. That's how this all started to begin with. And that's where it needs to go back. But you were making a point about how doctors, they're simply giving you the information. But, Corey and Antoine hop in because we were talking about, yes, the doctor gives you the information. But at that line is where there should be a choice. And the question is, who gets to make that choice?
If you're asking Trace, I would always say people make decisions with the best information they're given.
Which titles?
Which people called the person, the two, I believe the two, as you said, actually, it is a two thing. Cause I actually have a thing like, I think you hold both people accountable. Whoever that man is who seed, cause remember, as you said, there ain't no move without the man here. That's my seed. We're both accountable.
I can say that.
Yeah, but, well, I mean, that's what it is. Or whoever, or maybe
Corey.
our
Corey said that.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I looked at Tequila. She did not say that.
Yeah, I did not say that, Trace. Don't get it twisted.
Well, it is common sense. I mean, you do know that,
Mama's
right?
baby, daddy's maybe. What happens if she don't know
But
who the daddy is?
again, if we're talking about life, because if you run over somebody, genuinely, this is where I get this. If you run over somebody and she is pregnant, then, because it's only she can be pregnant, you run over her and you have double homicide. Well, that's because there's another person. And I would say the person that helped create that is also on the hook for, as much we do child care, it should start with the both, but who are the ones accountable for this being that they created called life?
Trace,
you're
losing this one, Trace.
Wait,
You and
hold
the
on.
Republicans, y'all are losing this argument.
Listen, I'm not jumping on either side. I'm just let me just check in on your reasoning. Because if you're going to use that argument that there could be a double homicide charge because the woman is pregnant and the baby dies, which I guess
that's precedent, right?
You're
in law.
setting up the fact that that is actually a life. But then what is the difference between the death penalty? I mean, you're killing people. So it seems like the argument is killing shouldn't happen, period.
Well, I kind of believe you shouldn't kill people.
It seems like there's a lot of Corey Antoine. I'm gonna get to y'all just a second.
I think we may have lost him. I think we.
But hold on to your point in court, though. To be fair, that is by a jury of peers. So these are all people that, you know, if you want to hold them accountable. The problem is the life that I'm talking about isn't able to speak, and so who speaks for them? Because that, you know, I like I said, I cherish life, and so. Again, I'm not going to say that families don't go in there where, you know, mom and dad are looking at each other and they're like, hey, baby, I love you. Like, we got to save you. I'm not saying that's not a fair, and the family should make that decision and the family should put the mother first. I know a lot of women that would be like, don't you ever do that. But I would probably put my wife first because that's what I would have.
I think the Republican conversation around women's reproductive rights is biased. And it's rooted in a sense of entitlement. First, they can have kids too, if we want to just be technical, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Well, that's the whole castration of men. That's what the women are doing right now. You're castrating us. You're killing our seed.
And also, if we want to be very honest, I know I'm not gonna go down these rabbit holes with Trace because he's never gonna listen. If we want to be honest, you know, this sense that everybody has a man and a woman. What about IVF? What about women who don't have a husband? The world says by 2052, the majority of people, black and white, are going to be single. So who's to say that this person, this woman is married? What about people who've been victims of rape?
Hey, I'm saying both people.
So you want a woman to go hunt down her rapist to be able to give him an opinion about what she should do with her body when he didn't give her an option in the beginning? I think it is a very biased conversation. It is exclusionary. You leave out certain aspects, and it's something that should be decided upon by the woman. Women should have the right to decide what they want to do with their bodies, especially in a state that does not have Medicare for all, especially in a state that has had 11 hospital closures, especially in a state that refuses to do something about the child care crisis. You cannot force women to have children and not help women take care of those children. Our state General Assembly right now is turning away federal dollars. They're stuffing money in this imaginary mattress. They're not letting that money trickle down to parents. And on the flip side, they're saying, but we want to control and tell you how to have kids. No, what they want to do is control the population because this almighty white population is dwindling. So they want to control the LGBTQ rights because a lot of their kids are LGBTQAI+. And they want to control women's right to choose because unfortunately, once one of, you know, a white woman or one of your relatives mates with one of my relatives, they become black. So
I have black relatives too.
Well, I'm
For the
sure.
record.
I'm sure. It's changing. The
population is changing. You're absolutely right.
And they want to control
And
that.
I do think that I'm not saying, I think there is a little bit of fear. I think that there's a little bit of fear because the population is changing and in a certain time, that race will not be the majority.
I'll tell you what scares us. The way the castration has gone on and the demasculation of men. And I think this all comes into, honestly, I think what I hear from some of my colleagues across the aisle here is you got a problem with men and masculism. And I think Donald Trump represents the men out there, and men need to stand up, take care of your children. If you impregnate the woman, take care of her. Shame on you. And shame on the people that are holding the healthcare access back. I mean, I can agree with you, Tequila. We need to take care of women who want to have children and want to be mothers, and we should honor them. And we should protect them, and to keep money and pilot the way that some of it has been done is shameful. And so I'm sorry for that. But that's not the future. Then that's what we're talking about tonight. Is we've got to have this conversation because it is so important.
It is. And we still got Antoine and we still have Corey on the line. We'll get back to them in just a second, get their responses to this. And we're still talking about reproductive rights. And we talked about LGBTQ rights. That's going to be coming up a little bit later inside of this hour. So we'll get into that conversation right now. Here's Marvin Gaye. What's going on 92Q?
Now that's the jam.
So-
But Trace, for the
You
record,
too.
I did not have to,
You sure don't. Harriet. Don't let him put
Much.
that on you.
I've done this. But, you
Trace,
said 4 political cycles.
No,
Sincerely.
I want to get back to this
Okay,
thing
go
that you
ahead.
keep bringing up,
Let's
the
do it.
emasculation of men.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
upset about it.
How
I'm
does
upset
that
about
become
So
the
loud, so you deflected like crazy.
right? Why are women responsible for emasculating men? How is that my problem as a woman?
Well, your presidential candidate's cheering it on.
How is that? You said this is something that's been happening for generations. So presidential candidate cheering it on. You just said that like this is something that's been going on for a long time. The emasculation of men.
Yeah, it's literally and again, I wasn't here 100 years ago when they told women they could not vote. Again, there's things that we
Vote
see
on a business.
Yeah, all the stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to stand in opposition to that. Like it's equality for all, okay? But when we start getting into like the separation of like all of a sudden now I'm something that I wasn't and I want these special rights and privilege, and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, for instance, now you get to transition yourself and I need to provide for all your health care while you do this, especially if you're in prison because you made a mistake, and then we want to restore your rights so that you can make sure I pay. I mean, all that stuff is just,
but
it's like weird.
Tennessee, so I feel like that is an extreme answer, Trace.
Well, this is an extreme
because
topic.
on one end of the spectrum, you have people like myself, a heterosexual woman that can't get access to health care, but we're focusing on trans women and trans men getting access to health care. Let's bring it back to the people that you say you want to protect. You're not even protecting me. So they shouldn't even be a topic of conversation when you talk about healthcare, because we don't even have healthcare as heterosexual cis men and women.
And I agree with all of that. But like I said, so, what we're talking about is, what are we arguing for them for? We need to talk about us.
And that's what we've been talking about. And then it always goes into,
because it isn't bombastic.
How do we, and that's your opinion, but it always goes to how do we find the most extreme cases of trans women, cis women, and pit everybody against each other. And it goes back to what I keep saying. I don't have as many arguments when it comes to this partisan rhetoric around issues, because it all traces back to one thing with Republicans, and that is control and dominance. Even when we're looking at these federal races that are coming out in Nashville, there is a reason why we don't have a congressional candidate in Nashville, and it's because our congressional district was split into 3. Why is that? Because the population is trending. 40+% more Latina people are moving into these districts. Black people are being forced out of Nashville and being pushed into those districts. So how do Republicans respond? They don't respond by making it easier for people to vote. They split the district up into 3.
Well, that's one way to look at it. And again, if with all due respect, if you're losing, that's the one to look at it. But if you're winning, you say, well, Nashville has a lot of resources they need, so let's give them 3 congressmen.
No.
So we got 3 votes.
And we're gonna have you looked at how those districts are drawn.
And I think that's the point, because I'm not denying.
It is. I'm
not denying that we may need more representation.
They don't even live here though.
But they don't live here, and we're splitting up districts, and it's proportionally being split up where it's not in favor. It's in favor of one demographic, and you got to know that. You have to know that.
But don't you want the money? Don't you want to bring the money home? Because they're bringing the money home to Nashville.
Really, are they?
When we control the House.
Because when you look at the state tax revenue, for example, Nashville puts in almost over a quarter of the state's revenue, and how much of that do we get back?
Chuck Fleshman's on appropriations.
How much of that do we get back?
Chuck Fleshman's the one bringing home appropriations. I mean, you have Senator Bill Haggerty and Chuck Fleshman. They're bringing home bacon. I mean, Tennessee Republicans
they ain't putting it on my table.
Right. That's
well, what do you mean not put it in your table?
When you look at the federal appropriations that we turn away, especially as it relates to things that are directly impacting Nashville, like environmental change and things like that.
Environmental change. Explain to me what environmental change is.
You know what it means.
But where's the money go? I mean, with money wise, like, what do you want the money to go towards?
I want the money to go to infrastructure. I want the money to go to disaster preparedness, disaster relief, child care. Do I need to keep going, Trace? We have so many issues. Education. The population in Nashville is growing. Our education systems are overburdened. Yet the state is talking about passing vouchers to give private schools more money. You would be fooling yourself and trying to pull the wool over my eyes if you sit here and say Republicans are doing the best that they can with the federal resources we could get.
We do have we have a caller, Mary, who has a comment for tequila. Mary, you're on the phone. Make your comment. She there?
Mary, you there?
Yes.
What's your comment?
My comment is I am so happy that I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but she's giving the Republicans, she's giving him everything that I was thinking. And they are dwindling. That is the only reason there is an abortion law and all of this abortion. They keep calling it abortion, but that's not the real issue. The real issue is there are less of them. And she did say the white women are killing their babies. Yes. Everything she said, she hit the nail dead on the head.
Tell them, Mary.
Awesome. All right, Mary. Well, thank you for your comment. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Tell her to stand her ground. I'm loving it.
What is the abortion rate for black women in America? Does anybody here know?
Do you know? I can Google it real quick.
Really Google
Corey,
it.
our expert, is online, and we can ask her.
They'll know.
Tell us the breakdown of white women and black women.
We're gonna come back right after the song in less than a minute. We'll ask Corey at that question, so she'll have that answer for us, and then we'll get their response to that. So we're gonna come back in less than a minute. But you guys that are on YouTube, thank you guys for being a part of this conversation. Continue to keep leaving your comments. Give us a call if you want to call in and speak your piece. Really appreciate that. Make sure you like and subscribe to the 92Q YouTube page as well, and continue to keep listening. We're still getting results in. I think right now we're at 154 electoral votes for Donald Trump, 30 for Kamala Harris. Do not get nervous. It is still early. It is just 8:18. It's still early. We're about to go back live. Welcome back to the 92Q Election Night Special. We've been having a really good conversation, really talking about reproductive rights. And we've still had Corey and Antoine on the phone from Planned Parenthood. And you got only Corey's on the phone. So Corey, I know you had a statistic. And Trace, you can ask the question. Ask Corey, 'cause I know she's got this off the top of her head. Trace, what was the question you wanted to ask her?
Can you tell me the percentage specifically? Because we've mentioned them both demographics. What is the white women population, percentage for abortion, and what is the black women percentage for abortion in America? It's the latest of our census.
Yes.
No, hold on. It does matter because we said it a couple times. So it does matter. If we're going to throw facts out, we need to put the facts out. That's fair. Is it higher or lower? Well, you said it was. But that's not the statement that was made on the radio. Who is we? Who is we? The parents? No, who is we? We have to define we. You're castrating men again. This is the castrating of men. Who's we? You just said a vasectomy of a man at 13 years old. That's creepy to even suggest, to be honest. At 13 years old, you think we should start giving vasectomies? Listen to this. This sounds like castration. Well, you're kind of spreading the lack of sexual education, to be honest, because you've given facts that aren't correct on the airways.
So
That's a lack of education.
Can I go back to the comment that I'm making? Because I think what Trace is doing is trying to, as we see oftentimes, use the data to manipulate his narrative and his
No, I just asked a
perspective.
question.
And what I'm doing is not just giving you data, because if you look at data is just sheer numbers, right?
Right.
But those
And data is
numbers do
skewed
not
depending on
provide,
who's asking and what questions are being asked.
those numbers do not provide information.
Well, then you
Information
shouldn't say that white
is
women
more-
are killing babies more than black women.
They
That's
are,
not
especially
true.
when you compare it to the birth
But
rate.
you just said it's not
Black-
true.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Is it true or is it
Now,
not
if
true?
you just sheerly look at the number of abortions are more attached to poverty than they are to anything else, because
Absolutely.
people who cannot afford, as Corey has alluded to take care of a child in this economy, even when Trump was president, in the Trump economy, people who cannot afford to tend to use abortion as a option more.
That's a fair
Now,
statement.
When you look at the birth rates and the population and abortion as information, which is a more holistic approach to analyzing data, you see that white women, right? The white population is decreasing, and abortions are contributing to that. That is not the case with Hispanic women, who also have abortions at higher rate, and that is not the case with black women. So the conversation is not just a numbers game, Trace. Don't try to play this now.
Well, I think the white women encourage it. Don't get me
This
wrong.
is all, and if we want to go even deeper, there are reports that show that white women who can afford to conceal their data because they
Democrat
go to
white
their
women.
and Republican.
Democrat white
And
women. No,
Republican. If you look,
Republican-
abortion polled high with Republican women
I
too.
guess
Quit
you're right.
playing,
I
Trace.
guess you're right. I'll give you
If
that.
you look
does.
at,
I'll give you fair.
if you look at the numbers and if you look at the reports that are coming
But
out,
mostly Democrats.
wealthy white women who can afford to go to their doctors and have their abortions not reported at the rates of black and Hispanic low income women are also getting abortions, and those numbers aren't included in the data, Trace. So if we really just want to be real, at the bottom line, let women control their bodies and this conversation goes away.
And no vasectomies for 13-year-old boys. That's disgusting.
Well, yeah, I don't.
Why
yeah.
can't we
I-
control
have to think about-
penises
so
if y'all
now
want to
let's go back
control
to that. Like,
uteruses?
let's
Well, they're trying
unpack
to
that.
through
So
school
when
counselors.
when we talk about sexuality and reproductive justice, there's a lot of shame in that, in understanding how our bodies naturally work. And when puberty hits and when hormones hit, and what puts us susceptible to risk of things like STIs, unwanted pregnancies, and things of that. And currently in Tennessee, we do not teach comprehensive sex education to where that could be a preventative method of understanding our bodies, puberty, and the process of how to prevent a pregnancy.
Yeah,
But again, when
but in
we're
Tennessee,
teaching abstinence only as the option versus allowing information as access, because as Tequila keeps talking about, everything is about access. Education is a privilege. Lee is posting these voucher systems in the school, and yet we got children that are still struggling to read and write. So where is the wealth distribution amongst all the schools when we are talking about every child deserves? So if we want to talk about abortion, that's great. But let's talk about the children that are currently living in Nashville, Tennessee, Davidson County, Shelby County, Hampton County, and beyond, who are currently here now. And so if we are saying that the life of the children are what is important, then why are we not making the environment that they are being raised in of the utmost safest, inclusive, fruitful environment that is conducive to innovation, creativity, and creating leaders of tomorrow?
well, the one thing the Democrats, when we say sex education, I mean, to be clear, the Democrats in Tennessee want drag queens read to children. And that's not the sex education. I mean, it's
and
real.
Republicans
It's real.
want rapists and people who say grabbing women by the vagina running the country.
Well, actually, I think 80 million Americans voted
And
that last
if we
time.
look at a lot of the Republicans, we have a lot
Chris,
of
we could get you some help
men
in
that
here.
have married and groomed women over a period, and they've ended up marrying their secretaries or their college interns, and there is usually a 30 to 40-year-old age gap between that. So if we want to talk about morals and values, then what about the people that are running the country? Is that no
I just think
longer
that you
a
guys really run a
bipartisan thing that we
narcissistic
control?
political agenda here. I mean, everything's about
Whoa.
everybody else
See, this
rather
goes
than the
back to-
personal
kinda-
decisions.
it-
As
it's-
someone who's a licensed therapist, this goes back to the Republican Party's lack of,
It's everybody
actual
else.
medical advice from trained medical professionals. Like, if you want to pull up the DSM-4 and look up narcissism, it is not what you're saying. Now,
It
you
is
can
actually.
say ego.
It is actually.
You
Read the
can say
definition of narcissism.
arrogance,
Can we say
but
that?
you can't.
Read that one.
Like, don't come in here throwing around this malinformation.
You know, because at the end of the day, I think
Come
right
on
now,
now.
the
Malinformation,
at the
that's my
top
new
of the
word.
at the top of the Republican Party is a narcissist.
A lot of
And-
I have heard a lot of narcissism political commercials. Period. So political narcissism. I actually made the joke about it. It's political narcissism. Everybody's a victim. But the truth is, if you want solutions, we can't be victims. We have to talk about the real issues. And I just think this is a lot of scapegoat stuff. It's just scapegoat again. Talking about vasectomies for a 13-year-old. Honestly, that's a new one. That's disgusting. And you're actually like promoting that idea. So that to me is very troubling.
But you're okay with a 13-year-old girl who could have been a victim of a rape being forced to give birth?
I just
What's
said
the
I was okay
difference?
with that.
And then let's take it a step further. When we think about the criminalization of pregnancy and what is happening to the youth and the abortion rates and numbers that are happening.
I don't
when
even know what you're
COVID
talking about.
happened, statistics showed us. So if we want to talk about numbers and data,
Which you've given none, by the
when
way.
COVID happened and more children were at home, cases of abuse went up. So we are also seeing that what we're talking about is there is more abuse happening to young people and we're not addressing it. So we want to make all these decisions, but we're not offering solutions. So once again, to Tequila's point, is the environment for the child a healthy environment?
I can agree with that.
What the state is providing is not that of health and well-being for the child.
But our health are different because I wouldn't say some of the healthy things they're subjected to by Democrats is very healthy. I think it's sick.
Yeah, we're gonna have to leave it there. Corey, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I truly appreciate your insight. You were amazing.
Trace some water.
Yeah, we're gonna trace some water. So we're gonna play Mary J. Blige right now. You ain't the only one to get Trace some water so he can refresh himself. And we're gonna be talking to somebody else. Brian Sullivan's gonna be coming back with us. We're gonna talk about
Yes,
LGBTQ
transition.
rights. That's coming up soon. Here's Mary J. Blige on 92Q.
Oh, I'm getting hammered.
Welcome back to the 92Q Election Night Special. I'm Sean Good with Harriet Wallace And, we've got to give you a quick update. We have a really great conversation we've had around abortion rights, and we could keep going on with that, but we had to continue to keep moving. Currently right now with the electoral map breakdown, Kamala Harris is at 53 electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 154. You still have some races that are still too close to call. Pennsylvania, North Carolina, I believe, is still in the mix. So we've still got a few races out there. It's still early on in the night. But Harriet, we did get a statement from the mayor about the transit bill.
Davidson County, you have approved the transit plan.
Oh, wow.
That is the latest results. So Trace may get his North Nashville sidewalks after
He just
all,
might
it
get
looks
it.
like.
Wow.
And this is coming from Mayor Freddie O'Connell. Tonight, the voters spoke decisively, and we are finally going to be able to move forward on an issue that impacts us all, regardless of our zip code, income, or political affiliation. What Nashvillians can look forward to is sidewalks that connect to one another, traffic lights that are smart enough to hold on, I got something blocking here, to keep the maximum amount of traffic moving, and much more. So again, you all have heard it. Davidson County voters, you have approved the transit plan. Congratulations to yourself, Mayor O'Connell. Quite happy at this moment.
Very, very happy. So the people have spoken, and so we're going to see a huge change, in our transit program with sidewalks and stop signs and red lights. We're going to see a huge trend for bike lanes. We're going to see a huge transition in the near future with our transit program, which is definitely needed. With 100 people a day moving into the city, and the way traffic is what it is, I think it's definitely something that there'll be a benefit to that, and so we're going to see that move forward. So,
and let's talk.
Shout out Councilman Toombs, though. I want to say shout out Councilman Toombs. We need those sidewalks. This is your turn. Let's go get them.
Yeah, when I lived in North Nashville, that was one of the biggest things that I talked about, those sidewalks. It's brutal. And as Tequila mentioned earlier, it's dangerous, folks and their kids almost getting hit. Let's swing back just very quickly. Again, we're talking about those congressional races for the Senate, 50 seats up for grabs. 33 of them at this moment are blue, 43 are red. In the U.S. House, 218 seats up, 66 of them are blue, 104 are red. And again, as I've been saying all night, as we're looking at the way the presidential race, these congressional races are flowing, we're seeing, again, it's still fairly early. We're starting to see some of those precincts, those numbers roll in, but we know that there are many more that we are waiting on. But we're still seeing more red than blue. But it is going to be a long night, a long rest of the week. And I think the deadline, or the latest that we can get a lot of these results in will be Monday.
mm-hmm.
So buckle up, everybody.
It just getting started. And one of the issues, we've talked about so many issues, from transit, from reproductive rights. One of the issues that's really on the ballot with the election of this new president, if it be going one direction or the other, if it goes to Donald Trump's direction, is the rights of LGBTQ community. And we have someone on the phone right now. Who do we have, Harriet, that's going to represent?
Brian Sullivan. Brian, are you there?
Yes.
Hey, Brian. Brian Sullivan, everybody. Wonderful guy. LGBTQIA advocate who has been heavily entrenched in this movement for quite some time, doing a lot of advocacy work. He is never silent. He is never afraid. Brian, you are at the watch party tonight. Give us a feel for where you are.
Yes, I don't know if you heard that in the background, but there is a big, huge, diverse group of the LGBTQ community here at the Lipstick Lounge, where Tennessee Equality Project and Nashville Pride are throwing a watch party for local LGBTQ and allied communities. And it is a very tense mood, lots of talking, and lots of very deep discussions. There are a number of LGBTQ issues that may not be directly on the ballot, but policy-wise, they are, America is kind of deciding directions here. What most advocates in the state want is just some, an easier route as far as talking about LGBTQ rights, and even just, having our foot in the door just to offer life experiences that many of us have had. Nationally, we have the Equality Act that whoever is elected in Congress, whoever is elected president, they will play a role in that.
we have a monumental Supreme Court case that's taking place December 4th that is centered around the state of Tennessee. The plaintiffs are from Tennessee on gender affirming care for youth. And yet, and that state will also, that case will also be, or it will be the first trans attorney to go before the Supreme Court, Chase Strangio, who is representing the plaintiffs. You have a number of different situations where, you know, we even, they did a survey of candidates, you know, would you support anti-LGBTQ riders in your legislation? Locally, we have the state's huge HIV funding gap in the state that kind of affects all different people in Tennessee. There's a large, you know, diversity of marginalized communities that are on the ballot. Their lives and well-being are on the ballot.
And
So
Brian,
it
that's what I
is
want to
a
ask you.
tense and loving room here tonight.
Brian, what is first and foremost for you all as far as what you may be concerned about or worried about, or perhaps even looking forward to as we are electing folks to either come back to their seats or new ones to replace those who were holding down those seats? What's front and center for the LGBTQ community right now? Concerns,
Well,
anything like that?
one thing on a national level that, you know, that we are concerned about is, you know, whether or not you have a Department of Justice that is going to step in when, you know, Tennessee infringes on the rights of LGBTQ citizens here. You know, that is a big issue. Right now, you have the Biden administration released new Title IX protections in schools for LGBTQ students in schools. And you have a lot of special interest groups, lots of money going towards groups to lobby against that. The book censorship issue in Tennessee, you just saw where different libraries have removed a number of books from the library for access to people. So that is where it comes into play. You have all of these school districts in Tennessee where you have groups that are fighting the new Title IX protections. And what's really going to make a difference is whether or not you have somebody nationally who is going to step in and say, you can't do this, federal law supersedes state law, and that sort of thing. But also in the state, you know, we seek out people who will talk to us, who will listen to us, who we can advocate on behalf of. And to do that, you have to have a group of people who are receptive to you. And that's what we're hoping for.
All right, Brian, stay right there. We're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna come back and continue this conversation about LGBTQ rights, especially in America and in Tennessee. So stay with us. You're listening to the 92Q Election Night Special on 92Q. Cool. Brian, you back there? Brian, you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can. Thank you so
Hello?
much. Can you hear me?
I'm so sorry if I talk too much.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We're on YouTube now. So while we're doing a commercial break, you can continue the conversation on YouTube. And I wanted to ask you something, you know, because obviously, you know, you're in the community and listening to different people in the community. What was the sense of, how did it feel? Because you're also you're gonna have, you know, there's Republicans and Democrats inside the LGBTQ community. What was the sense when J.D. Vance made the statement that he believes that normal gay men will vote for him? How did that, when you heard that? Because first of all, what does that mean? And did that, was it immobilizing for people? Did it encourage people to realize this is not who I want as one of my leaders? How did the community feel about this statement?
Well, I mean, any identity that's listening right now, you know, for example, if I were how would it make you feel if I said, well, I've got the normal black guy vote?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not a, I don't want to speculate about what he meant or anything like that. You know, who knows? I mean, for me, you know, what is normal in 2024, honestly? What is he referring to? That's perplexing. You know, as a bipartisan advocate, I've always tried to find a way where people with differences of opinion about how we move forward in the LGBTQ community can come together and talk about policy. And you know, the most important thing to me, this is the most consequential election of our lifetimes.
It is.
In every level and for all communities. And this is a time where you have all sorts of different intersecting marginalized communities, women, Latinx voters, Black people of color, LGBTQ, that it directly affects. You know, you may think that the decisions that are made tonight have no bearing on your life. They absolutely do. And in Tennessee, we've seen an onslaught slate of hate in our state for many years. You know, last session, there were over 21 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced. Well, over 24, 3 of them passed. But 21 of them were delayed.
And Trace, that's a Republican majority. They're passing these bills that are eliminating rights for a community that is there, that is real.
Well, they're making, again, and I appreciate this conversation. First off, shout out to the folks at Lipstick Lounge. I think the Valentines are fun people. I like them. I hope they're having fun at their party. You know, again, I think that when it comes down to it, I know Tequila hates hearing this, but it is the economy. And I think that most people, I think when they say regular, if you will, maybe it's just the folks that talk to me, they're concerned about the money. I mean, they're not necessarily trying to push their homosexuality on me. They're here talking about real things.
So they're concerned about the money, as in
concerned
what?
about
Be
their well-being,
specific.
if you will. Everybody's concerned about the economy. And so, I mean, you have to say, yes. I mean, I would say the demographic is growing in the Republican Party because it's people based on principles of leave me alone, stay out of my bedroom, don't be concerned about who I'm with, and make sure my economy is taken care of. But these are like normal people things. I think that the agenda that you get pushback on, again, I hate to say, I mean, we're talking about the books, but I said it in the last segment. Look, we don't think that drag queens should read to 13-year-old boys and talk about giving them vasectomies. I mean, you're right. That's nuts.
You're definitely hanging on to that statement. You're hanging on to that. But go ahead, Brian. What's your comment?
Sorry, this is very, very new to me. I don't know of that instance.
It was the time before you were on the phone. I apologize for.
He twisted it like most
sorry.
Republicans do, Brian. Don't worry about it.
But
I hear you, Brian. I want you to know,
know,
Brian, I hear you as a Republican. I hear what you're saying.
But what I know a lot of drag queens, okay? And I know that a lot of times you have drag queens who perform in different settings. Some may perform in a nightclub, and then the next day they're performing somewhere public like a brunch or something. I do not know a single drag queen that does not very carefully tailor their performance to the crowd.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, I would hope so, right? I mean, I would hope so. Yes. Other than that, like, do you, player, you know?
Yeah, but the challenge is, but that's not really when it comes to laws that are going against the community. That's really not what the Republicans are saying. They're not saying, do you?
The law, if the law against the community is you cannot infringe on our children, then I stand with the law. Can't infringe on our children.
I want to go back to something Trace keeps saying.
But
he mentioned
infringing.
I think when you push
infringing on the children.
Any adult who pushes sexuality on a minor, that is who I'm talking about.
Including when you force a
whatever.
Yeah.
You cannot force on a minor. I think that's normal. That's why I think
any
the whole
adult who is doing that is, you know, sexual assault. But that's not what drag queens are doing.
Well, that's what we were talking about, reading to children. Yeah, I mean, it is what we were at least.
So, but if a pedophile reads to a child, it's okay.
No, we don't. I mean, we want to make sure they can't
but
either.
How is that? My question is, how how do you see a drag queen reading to children as sexual in nature?
All right, Brian, pause. We have to go back live. So hang tight, Brian. Stay right there. We're going to bring you back. We're going to get back into this conversation in just a second. Stay right there. Welcome back to the 92Q Election Night Special. I'm Sean Good with Harriet Wallace. And the conversations continue to be, first of all, thank you for callers. Thank you for everybody who's called in that's been on YouTube. We have had some really, really robust conversations, right, Harriet?
Absolutely, man. I'm about tired. Like, good grief. Because the way that Trace took that 1, 2, 3 punch and kept standing. I'm proud of you,
And
Trace. You held it down.
First time meeting Trace. Much respect, because he's definitely
Can I come back?
You know
That's
what?
a brave man.
You're brave enough to do that. Definitely come on back.
Bring on Charlemagne. That's next.
That's something. That's a different conversation. So, but we were talking about LGBTQ rights, and we have Brian Sullivan on the phone with us now. Brian, you still there? And I'm good. Thank you for hanging on with us. We know that you're at a watch party right now, and we're really getting to the conversation as far as the rights of LGBTQ. And there's been several bills that put into the floor of Tennessee, and 3 of them have passed. And it's, again, a Republican majority that are really,
super majority
that are limiting. They are limiting rights of this community. And your response
Allegedly.
was, well, it's true. Your response was
No,
what?
it's not.
Your response was what? That you didn't want to see. You said that you didn't want to see drag queens reading to children. And
No.
So that is your sum up of why you want to why it is limiting the rights of LGBTQ community in the state.
But I think if you talk about common sense drag queens, they wouldn't want to do it either.
Let me ask her, what's the difference? I'm just asking for a friend. Oh, I'm just asking for a friend, and then y'all just finish it out. Asking for a friend. What is the difference? And I'm not saying I feel one way or the other, but I'm just asking asking the difference between someone dressed up in drag reading a book to kids and someone dressed up as a dragon or a star or a unicorn.
Sexual intent.
What do you mean by sexual intent?
Just sexual intent. What is the intent of the nature of the language? What is the nature of the
They're
setting?
reading kids' books.
What I mean, are we reading, Peter Cottontail? Did we dress up like Peter Cottontail? Because I mean, you're right. I mean, because in serious, if you want to dress up like a bunny suit and read Peter Cottontail, like, okay, I get that. And Halloween, if you. No, you're right. But the kids, no one should have to bring their kids. That's the point. You read wherever you want, do whatever you want, but you can't do it to minors.
I got a question for you. Do you know the percentage of drag queens, as you say, in the country?
No, I don't. I'm not as concerned about them, for the record. I'm not as concerned, but it is a for instance that we are talking about, which is real. So we have to talk about it.
I'm going to that because you keep talking about numbers, and there are not that many drag queens in the country.
So
in
but
comparison.
hold on. You can't say that because now you have belittled my friend's point on the phone, and you've minorized him.
No.
You belittled him.
No, I'm not. I'm saying you are speaking like you just told us when it related to abortion. You are speaking about something. Exactly. So you're speaking about a very small population of the LGBTQ community, and you're using that as a point to say everyone who's in this community should be treated as a monolith, and we're going to criminalize this because
I never said that.
There's one drag queen in the world, and we
that.
saw a picture of them talking to their kid.
I never said that.
Go ahead, Brian.
Please do. Put him in jail.
Brian, you've got some support here on
Drag queens
our...
aren't sexualized? Drag queens are not sexual. There's nothing sexual about drag queens. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation.
I'm that guy.
No, you are not.
You're
You
not.
just have a beard. Quit playing.
But that's such a small amount, as Tequila said.
No.
Yeah.
But they do this in public. Like we see it at the Pride Parade, right?
Yeah, just like any other parade.
But it's public. I mean,
Right.
it's public sexuality, right? That's all I'm saying.
So what's the difference? I'm just gonna throw this out there. What's the
Well, of
difference?
course, it's on
between-
everything. It's everywhere. Of course I do. Duh.
What's
I
the
mean,
difference between someone dressing in, again, I'm asking from a friend. I don't want to tell the name. What's the difference between someone dressing in drag and, let's say, a teenager or a woman dressing up as Freddy Krueger or Jason or,
do they believe they're
Donald
Jason
Trump.
or Donald Trump?
yeah, they believe that these are
And
real
can call-
characters.
Okay, well,
I mean,
then, you know, if you walk around, because there are people on Broadway who do dress up as characters and they believe they're their
but
characters.
should
And
they,
I get,
should,
and we are
should
literally
there be
living in that
laws
society.
against them for dressing up as
No,
the
you should be able to
opposite
dress up
sex
whatever you
character?
want. Dress up whatever you want. I'm for
for
know.
Halloween, but not to
No,
read
no,
books.
whatever you want. I'm just saying, keep it away from minors. And I think that's a decency thing. Just leave minors out of it.
Tequila, you wanted.
That's very true.
You're true. You're absolutely.
We're gonna have to go ahead, Brian. Finish that.
Get your freak on.
Brian. You're going to give the last statement. We'll have to wrap it up. Give your last statement, Brian, real quick.
You better preach over there.
I love you too, Brian. We love you too, Brian.
That's right.
We love you too.
All right, Brian. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Brian Sullivan.
And guys, that wraps up our coverage for tonight. It's
you so
been
much.
We're
amazing. We are done.
I
So
was
much
just
fun.
getting
I
warmed
know.
up.
We got to get
Me
out
too.
of here. Thank you so much to Trace. Thank you so much, man. You were awesome.
Yes.
Tequila,
and your
thank
beard,
you so
for
much.
coming.
Absolutely.
All of our guests that called in, everybody on YouTube, we really appreciate it, guys. Hey, the night is still young. It's going to continue to keep going on, so pay attention to it. Watch our YouTube, our socials. We'll keep you updated. Hey, but keep it right here. Coming up next at the Quiet Storm, right here
Make
on
America
92Q.
great again.
Thank you,
Good
guys.
night.
Hey, YouTube guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. We really appreciate it. Thank you for everybody that's been on there. Dawn, I see you jump in. Sir Lyles, Sissy, Jessica, D, Brickhouse, thank you guys so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate it. You never know. This was kind of maybe the beginning of some things you may see coming up later on. You never know. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. This was super fun. I was excited, a little nervous to do this, but I was very excited to do this.
You were nervous?
I was a little nervous.
That's why you broke out the tie.
I was a little nervous.
Look, yeah. Doesn't Sean look like he dressed up for his 4th grade school picture? He look handsome.
I don't
look
get
at
to,
him.
I don't get
Got
to
his
dress
little
up
tie
like
and
this
all
that often because I come in here at 4 o'clock in the morning. So, a t-shirt and some jeans is about all you get. So to dress up every once in a while is kind of cool. But thank you guys so much for being a part of this. Really appreciate it. You guys have a great night. Keep watching the results. Don't stay up too late and don't stress out because it's still early. It's just 9 o'clock. This is going to go on for a while.